a number of potential collaborators with us, if I may put it that way. We have targeted funders, we have parties, we have the Oman Sovereign Wealth Fund, we have others who are willing and ready.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute economic news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Flossie Lapon, Sintra, Portugal, and this is Bloomberg.
Rally into Thanksgiving. We are 30 minutes until the start of the cash trade. I'm Matt Miller.
And I'm Danny Berger. Bloomberg Open Interest starts right now.
Stocks gain momentum on this Thanksgiving Eve with bullish bets for 2026 starting to flood in.
Adding to that optimism is news that Trump ally Kevin Hassett has emerged as the frontrunner to be the next Fed chair.
And while the AI competition continues to play out, investors turn toward more defensive corners of the equity markets.
So viewers that have been watching Bloomberg TV all day would have seen us earlier and seen us break what I think may be the most interesting, well, it's the only earnings of today, but one of the more interesting earnings of this week, and it was Deere. They issued their first fiscal outlook for 2025, or their outlook for fiscal 2025, but that fell short of expectations. There's a lot of uncertainty about the timing of a recovery in the U.S. farming economy. Matt, those shares falling 4% in the pre-market.
Yeah, I think it's a really fascinating, multifaceted story. We're going to touch on that again in this hour. Checking on NVIDIA, which was down more than 14% this month as of the close yesterday, getting a little bit of a reprieve. That's from new competition from Google, concerns around AI valuations, continuing to weigh on investor sentiment. This is another meaty story that we're going to dig into throughout Open Interest today, Danny.
We're going to start digging into it right now. Wedbush analyst Dan Ives said that he isn't deterred by the NVIDIA stock price slipping or talk of an AI bubble.
NVIDIA doesn't have enough chips to ultimately meet demand, right, relative to what we see. But it speaks to my points about the second, third, fourth derivatives of the AI plan that you have 3 to 4 trillion that's going to be spent in the next year. To call this a bubble, it's wrong. Someone made this up. The cover tech stocks in the late 90s. It's a 1996 moment, not a 1999 tech bubble mode.
Joining us now is Bloomberg tech reporter Ryan Westelica. Ryan, it's not only Dan Ives defending NVIDIA. NVIDIA itself has gone on the defensive, trying to defend itself against the hype around Google.
Yes, good morning. Thanks for having me. So yeah, there's been a lot of discussion and analysis about what does NVIDIA's market share potential look like, especially given the increased attention and focus that's being put on Alphabet's TPU chips. Now, I'll say these aren't exactly a direct sort of comparison to NVIDIA's GPU chips. They're much more specific, but they are designed to work on AI cloud workloads, which is what a lot of these chips are being used for. So as Alphabet starts to get these orders, we saw Anthropic, there was a report of Meta earlier this week. People are starting to reassess how dominant is NVIDIA going to be. Now, most people do think it's going to be very dominant. It's going to continue to be a major player, but there are very different implications for the stock and the valuation if the market share stays around 80-90% or if it goes down a lot lower.
Ryan, I wonder if it makes a difference to the AI leadership of this market if someone else in the Mag 7 starts to take leadership of, a certain part of the supply chain.
Yeah, what's been a very interesting trade to look at, especially recently, is all the companies that are sort of connected to the Alphabet side of the trade, meaning companies like Broadcom. Those have been doing very well, whereas companies that are more tied to the OpenAI sort of things, which is NVIDIA, AMD, Microsoft, Oracle, those stocks have really been struggling this week. So it's been a very interesting sort of disparity among those two groups.
All right, Ryan, thanks so much for joining us. This is a story we're going to keep talking about, not only throughout the rest of the day, but probably the rest of the decade. Ryan Blastelica there covers tech stocks for us out of Chicago. Now, on the earnings front, Deere falls after its 2026 outlook comes up well short of expectations. The weak outlook comes as American farmers continue to struggle. Joining us now is Chris Ciolino. He covers the industrials for Bloomberg Intelligence. And Chris, we were expecting a profit of $5.31 billion in 2026, and Deere said it's only going to be between 4 and 4 3/4. Why the big miss?
Yeah, I mean, we expected a conservative outlook heading into the print here. This was well below our expectations and even below, some of the most bearish estimates out there. And really suggests, a more severe and prolonged ag downturn here in North America. To your point, they expect net income to be down north of 10% next year, which would imply earnings somewhere in the, $16.50 a share range for 2026, which is, 18% below the street. That's the bad news. I think there is a silver lining here. One, this really solidifies that 2026 will be the trough. I think there's little doubt about that now. And two, there's probably some inherent conservatism baked into this outlook, just given the lingering uncertainty on the trade and tariff front.
Well, to that point, President Trump recently had a phone call with President Xi. Soybeans always on the agenda, and not to mention an administration that wants to support farmers and might do so with stimulus to them. So, Chris, was this a kitchen sink moment with the government coming to rescue farmers and therefore Deere?
I don't think so. Historically, government aid and farmer aid specifically has not been used to go out and purchase new machinery. They'll use that money to, pay down.
Hello, my name is DrPaulCottrell. We are live streaming on Rumble and on YouTube and on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Please help support the work that I do by sharing the links and asking your social media to follow me. I have lots of different channels that you can follow me on. You can follow me on YouTube, Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble, on TikTok, X, GETTR, Substack, and Patreon. All these videos are for free. Please help support the work that I do. If you want to see the market telemetry, take a look at the live stream on my website or the live stream on YouTube. I also re-release these videos on all the different channels for the individuals that couldn't watch the live stream. Please help support the work by donating. You can donate through my website. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or buy me a coffee. You can be a paid member to my Patreon and Substack channels. All these videos are for free. I don't put it behind a paywall, so please help support the work that I do. I also have great products, ebooks, supplements, and course material on immunology and pulmonology. It's a great way to learn about how your respiratory system works and your immune system. Let's talk about some of the great products that I have. And if you stack these products the way I tell you to stack them, then what will happen is that you're going to slow down the aging process and have more vitality. Please go to my store and get the Zeolite. Zeolite will detoxify your body. It binds to heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals, and allows you to urinate them out within 6 to 8 hours. When you detoxify your body regularly, your immune system and your endocrine system will perform better, even your brain function. So take it every day, 3 small drops underneath your tongue, and drink the filtered water. Another great product that I have that helps with the detoxification is a dual purpose product, the deodorants. I have it in peppermint, lavender, and tea tree, and in citrus. I partnered up with Rainbow Herbals. We've created these deodorants. You use it as a daily deodorant, but it'll also help to detoxify your body. Why? The ingredients that are in here are from the Himalayas. It's essential oils from the Himalayas, specially blended to create this deodorant. You can't buy a deodorant on the market like this. It's very special. So it'll help to detoxify your body, but it'll also have the mode of being a daily deodorant. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get a few bars for your household. It's for males and females, and detoxifying your body regularly is going to help your immune system and your endocrine system. So with that, if you use discount 5 all caps, you get $5 off any order. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. Get prepared for the winter season. In addition, you're getting into the holiday season. You can purchase some of these products that I have in my store and give them as gifts, or consider a New Year's resolution where you want to get healthy. If you pay attention to what I have to say in this video, you will get healthy. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
Chairman Powell, might not be so much of a strike against him, especially if the objective is to roll back the extent to which they are providing any sort of forward guidance or any sort of messaging. I think they view that sort of transparency, the reliance on forward guidance, almost as a little bit of a policy mistake. And we've seen it a little bit just in recent weeks. We saw Fed branch presidents coming out very hawkish through October, and then really adjusted pricing for the December rate cut. And then again, we experienced a little bit of whiplash when New York Fed President John Williams came out last week. And now we have about a 90% probability of a rate cut in December priced in. That's sort of a whiplash and an attempt to manipulate markets with forward guidance is the sort of thing the administration is looking to move away from. The fact that he doesn't have an A+ in terms of communication probably isn't that big of a strike against him.
All right, Stuart, thanks so much for joining us. Stuart Paul from Bloomberg Economics. We're going to check back in with you in about an hour's time. Let's check in right now on what's going on in the markets. We have futures rising ahead of the opening bell right now, looking at gains of 0.25% on S&P futures, a little bit more on NASDAQ futures. And it's interesting, even with the concern of NVIDIA losing out, at least in some sense, to Google, you still see those shares rebounding. That's obviously going to drive the trades.
Yeah, and you saw yesterday being able to mark gains too, even though NVIDIA fell. But I guess you just need something else to take the mantle, like a Google that's done so well over the past few sessions. By the way, some of the other movers on our radar this morning, Dell has raised its shipment projections for the AI server market as it capitalizes on the data center boom because everything tech is an AI trade.
HP's profit outlook, and by the way, this is an AI story as well.
Of course it is.
Missed estimates for the year as memory chip costs weigh on earnings, but it also, HP that is, announced 4,000 to 6,000 job cuts through fiscal 2028, which is, clearly it's a long way away.
I mean, we're going to have robot overlords by 2028. Who knows what AI will look like?
They're saying that they're
We're going to pivot over to what's happening in education, especially with AI. Now, in terms of the NVIDIA chips, NVIDIA uses GPUs. Alphabet has developed chips and have been using them for their AI research that's called a TPU. And the mathematics to solve problems is different. A tensor type mathematics versus this typical GPU that's coming from NVIDIA. So with that said, that means that there's less energy that will be used with the TPUs. And supposedly it can do just as well, if not better, than what NVIDIA is doing with their high-end chips. Now, a couple videos ago, so this is episode 24, Fuse episode 24, I think it was episode 22, or maybe it was 21, but I was mentioning that AI and these server farms that are doing the calculations and using neural network algorithms to build their LLMs, to build these frontier models. It consumes a lot of energy. And until chip design, until the semiconductor industry starts to mimic the way the brain works, it's going to be inefficient. It's going to need a lot. It's going to have to compute with a lot of brawn force, because it's not modeling the same way the brain works. Now, let me give you an example of what I mean. We can do a lot in such a small space, right? So our brain capacity is limited to our cranial capacity, our cranial volume. And as the brain developed, we have actually 3 layers of our brain. But that neocortex layer is where this computation is, most of the computation, or what we would think a higher being would be thinking. So we have that reptilian brain that And then around that is the cortex, the neocortex that allows for this more high-end thinking. Now, even our cranial capacity was, because it's limited, we have undulations, these convolutions in the brain. So these bumps and crevices, these convolutions for the brain to be able to have more neocortex packaged in a small space. So during our evolutionary process, we actually started to have more creases and bumps for our brain, more convolutions. If you look at a species that is lower end in cortical computing or cortical computation, the capacity, they usually have smoother brains. All right, their convolutions are less. So we have these convolutions because of this limited capacity in the skull. And then we have these different layers that we're developing for the neocortex. But the way the computation takes place between neurons, by shooting a neurotransmitter, having the dendrites in a network that is allowing communication and storing information. And it fires a certain way and a thought happens, or it fires a certain way and you're able to move your arms or whatever, okay? So you have these networks that are built. But not just do you have these neurotransmitters being created and communicating to a different neuron or a series of neurons that have feedback loops, negative and positive feedback loops. You also really have communication through the axon. And the axon is the longer part of the neuron. So the neuron is computing by creating a neurotransmitter and shooting a signal to a adjacent neuron. That's how neural networks computation works. It's trying to model that kind of, in computers, it's modeling that kind of computation. Neuron next to other neurons connected and shooting a neurotransmitter, and that memory of that communication means something. A thought, piece of music that you remembered or whatever. So that's similar, not exact, but similar to neural network computing. And that's what all these chips are based off of this using a software model to compute and embedding some of that into the chip and allowing for high-end computation to take place. So it's a combination of software and chip design. But we have axons, and research that's coming from Penrose and Hammeroff back in 2010, I think it was, we're stating that there's also computation that's taking place along the axon. And it's not 2-bit. I think it was 8-bit computation. But the point here is that there's higher levels of computation that's taking place inside the neuron. So it's not just neuron to neuron, but also within the neuron. We haven't developed algorithms, at least being used in practice. We haven't developed algorithms or chip design that's mimicking really what's going on in the brain. So you have these big servers, they're trying to understand, collect information and get meaning out of it, and being able to create important text or summaries or generative AI. It has to have lots of chips, lots of space to build these servers, and lots of energy. But the human brain can do so much in such a little space. And you just eat, in relative terms, the calories that you're bringing in to run your brain daily is by far less than what is needed to run these servers to do something similar to what the brain is doing. And it's not even that efficient. So it's not really modeling the way the brain works. It's inefficient. So energy costs are going to go up. And you're really losing the real concept of biological computation through neurons. Now, what's even more interesting is you can create mathematical models and see that there's actually computation at the cytoplasmic level, so of a cell. So what's interesting here is that the neuron computes, not just a neuron to a neuron. And a neuron to a neuron is more like a neural network. To my knowledge, there's no real good algorithm or chip design that mimics the axon computations that are happening inside the neuron. And so the computational power is so much more for the brain. This is the reason why we have so much more capability than, let's say, an AI today. So AI researchers are just saying, okay, we're going to have just brute force, use up energy, build millions of chips, have these large server farms, and just collect data. And then if you have a big enough amount of data and you create enough association and probability associations, that you'll eventually have something that is AGI, artificial general intelligence. And my take on this is that it's not efficient. It's not mimicking the way biology is happening, and therefore, most likely, you're not going to reach AGI in that method because it's too cost prohibitive. Too many chips, too much space that's needed, too much energy that's required. Now, there are some theorists that are saying, well, in silico, let's say, we'll use the term in silico consciousness or in silico computation could supersede biological computation, and it'd be totally different. In silico computation, meaning just keep on doing the brute force method. And the chips will get better and better and be more efficient. And it doesn't matter if it's really modeling the way the human brain is really working. I think that when chips start to become more efficient, which is what it seems to be for the TPUs, but way down in future generations of chip development, the chips are going to be more efficient. You'll need less of them, so you can bring in the space capacity needed, reduce that space that's needed for the servers. You're bringing down the use of energy. Now, this is years away, right? You're bringing down the use of energy, and the chip design is more like quantum computing. Because I think what's happening is that our neurons will act like a qubit computation. It's not bit cube. It's not bit, it's qubits. I think we think in quantum. Our brain works in quantum. I could be wrong, but the thing is that there's something about the human brain not needing as much energy to be able to compute so much and have so much capability in such a small space. And therefore, these chips will move towards something that is quantum, like a quantum chip. Now, they have quantum computers and quantum, but nowhere near the capability of the human brain. Now, people measure AI as, well, it can think faster. So what? What's the meaning? Ask the computer, what's the meaning? And is it just a robot saying what a meaning is? But if you ask a human being what meaning is, there's something more innate. There's something more human about it than AI. And I think that the reason for this is that it's not modeling the way neurons really work. either when they are communicating with each other or the way the computation, the qubit computation is taking place in the axon. So that's my take on it, all right? But over time, what's going to happen is that better chip design is going to move towards like a qubit kind of computation, using less energy, less space, building up new knowledge, and then you really now are moving towards AGI. I never really believed AGI was possible with the way Blackwell is, the way NVIDIA is designing, and the way the algorithms to build the frontier models are. I mean, think about it. You look at a child when they're born to about the time they're 2 years old, the amount of energy they've consumed in 2 years is far less, and what they've gained in knowledge is far greater than anything that a frontier model has done in such a small package. So artificial intelligence is nowhere close to human intelligence. It could learn more. Let me rephrase it. It could scrape and save data and retrieve that data better, faster. It can compute faster than a human brain. But does it know more? Does it have an understanding of the information versus the actual regurgitation of the information? Now, these are profound philosophical thoughts and debates about, in silico intelligence versus biological intelligence. But Blackwell, even Alphabet, chip with the TPU, these chips are nowhere close to being able to really model the way the human brain really works. So they're just scratching the surface of what they've created is a machine that can scrape data, find associations with data, and generate data based on a question or some sort of task. But it's not like, it doesn't come anywhere close to what it's like to be a human. If it was more like a human, then you would think that space would condense to match something that's similar to the brain. You ask an AI researcher, I want you to use the same for your computation, for your servers, for your chips. I want you to compress it into the capacity of a human brain. That's your space. Now you can condense it and fold it, all right? But it has to be in the volume of a human skull. And it has to be able to use in 1 year the amount of energy that a typical brain uses in 1 year. They can't do it. They can't do it. They can't even come close. So there's a huge gap here. And again, I think it has a lot to do with qubits and this quantum computing. I think our brain is a quantum computer. All right, so, but biological, right? Through evolution. Okay, so let's go to education here and how students are cheating using AI and how it's affecting education. Before we do, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the lavender and the peppermint structural nano silver soap. I also have it in lemongrass and charcoal tea tree. Very high quality soaps made from structural nano silver, great for the winter season. But you can use it year round. It helps to improve your skin health, and it helps to support the work that I do. And it's a great gift. This is a great stocking stuffer. So please go to my store, get a few bars of this structural nano silver soap, help support the work that I do, and use discount 5. You get $5 off any order. And if you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. C60, you can get an MCT coconut oil extra virgin olive oil, and avocado oil. You can get it in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. Take a teaspoon a day every day, preferably on an empty stomach for best absorption. If you work out, take it before you work out. It's going to soak up the free radicals and you're going to recover from your workout quicker. You're going to see the effects of this within 2 months. If you take it for 1 year, you're going to look younger. To do a compare picture of before and after, you will look younger in 1 year. In addition, C60 will soak up those free radicals at the vascular level, so you're reducing plaque formation. It'll soak up free radicals at the neuron level to improve the health of the neuron. It'll increase the energy levels of the neuron and produce more neurotransmitters, so therefore your neuroplasticity will improve. You'll think faster, you'll have better memory. And at the other cellular tissue level, it's going to soak up those free radicals. Those tissues will perform better. You'll have more energy. Your immune system will be better. Your endocrine system will be better. So please go to my store and get the C60. Take a teaspoon a day every day. It's a teaspoon a day every day. You can get it in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. This is super important. And also at the basal layer of your skin, it will improve the health of that basal layer where new skin cells are being produced, and you'll look younger. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. This is very important to take. Take it every day, teaspoon a day. All right, the market did open up. The S&P 500 is at 6,796. I have a target of 6,850 per year end to about 6,900. The VIX index is at 17.86. Oil is trading at $57.81 a barrel. Natural gas is trading at 4.59. And Bitcoin is trading at 87,000. All right, let's listen into this clip about education being changed because of ChatGPT.
At universities across the country is the first to have spent nearly its entire college career in the age of generative AI, a type of artificial intelligence that can create new content like text and images. As the technology improves, it's harder to distinguish from human work, and it's shaking academia to its core with some very big questions. Special correspondent Fred DeSam-Lazaro has the story for our series, Rethinking College.
And the principal of humanities says, treat all people as ends in themselves, never merely as means.
About 2 years ago, Megan Fritz, a philosophy professor at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock, began spotting something unusual about her students' writing.
You suddenly get an essay or a test answer, some kind of assignment from a student whose normal writing you're familiar with, and you get something back that sort of sounds like an official business document or a piece of technical writing that sounds very highly polished, but very impersonal.
Impersonal because it likely wasn't written by a person. This was the beginning of a turning point for higher ed, as generative AI had swept through not only her campus, but college campuses across the country. A survey last year found that 86% of college students are now using AI tools like ChatGPT, Claude AI, and Google Gemini for schoolwork. The reason generative AI has spread so quickly on college campuses is not hard to understand. It's transformed tasks that used to take hours, even days of writing and revision into something that can be done in mere minutes. For example, I can ask ChatGPT, write me a 1,000-word essay on the topic of, is it okay to lie? And using a massive amount of data, it predicts and generates sentences on this topic instantly. Fritz says the impact has been deeply disruptive.
If I'm reading the writings of ChatGPT, and instead of my students, I have lost the very best tool that I have to see if I am being effective in my capacity as an instructor or not.
We really need a framework in which people can use these things.
If more students are using ChatGPT to do their homework, they're not going to learn from their classes, and therefore they're not going to have the skills to be productive citizens. Now, what is interesting, what I've been doing an experiment, all right? Now, I've been playing around with this AI type technology. All right. Now, I've done it in different subjects. One has been in medical research. All right. There are softwares like AlphaFold and Swiss Model that can fold proteins. So when I did my thesis on the TAP protein, I used to understand the shapes of in different topologies of the TAP protein. I used Swiss Model. Also, when I did my research during the COVID crisis, I used Swiss Model to understand the changes to the actual spike protein. Now, AlphaFold comes out with different versions, and that capability has really improved a lot. So I've been playing around with AlphaFold for certain research projects, where you can take a base protein, modify the base protein, change the shape, and then check the actual docking to another protein, either a receptor or some other protein within the cytoplasm, and to understand that dynamic. And if there was some sort of mutation that takes place, what would change in terms of its docking potential? So I've been playing around with AI, with AlphaFold, and with HADOC. All right, so that's one part that's very specific, scientific, molecular biology type stuff. All right. Then I have been playing around with generative AI in engineering, and generative AI in engineering for mechanical engineering or structural engineering. And that's through Fusion 360. Fusion 360 is a CAD CAM CAE software that you can design or manufacture or even create simulations for mechanical engineering. All right. Now, also electrical engineering and other engineerings, but the thing is that there is a capability within that software where you can do generative design. Well, what that basically is that you're taking a shape, or you're taking a boundaried space, and you create conditions. I want a rigid body here, a slide joint going, let's say, on the x-axis. You put some loads that are either static or dynamic, and it will start to generate a ideal shape. Now, that shape may not be manufacturable with molds, but it usually is manufacturable within additive manufacturing, which is stereolithography, or the layman term is 3D printing. But through additive manufacturing, these shapes are usually producible. But for mass production, you have to modify it. You can break up the design, have it multiple pieces, whatever. But you can design new structures in it instead of building it, designing it manually and creating surfaces or solid structures and cutting and doing Boolean properties to them. It will generate the shape for you, and then you can modify it. You can use it or modify it to your liking, either because of styling or because of manufacturing constraints or whatever it is. So Autodesk, which is the owner of all these different softwares, but Fusion 360 is one of these softwares that will do the generative AI. Works really well. All right. But this type of technology for generative design goes all the way back to 1999 and 2000 under Hypermesh. Hypermesh was a technology, a company that basically took tessellated data. All right, so when you're doing CAE, computer-aided engineering, you usually take a surface or a structure and you have to mesh it, and then you put loads on it, and then you do your analysis, and it'll tell you where the weak spots are. Or you can, do a thermal analysis to find out where the heat sinks are or whatever. But you have to mesh it. Well, back in the 1999 and 2000, Hypermesh was able to do something similar where you created constraints and it used a mesh to give you the structure you needed, and then you would build manually surfaces that would map on that mesh. So it's called perturbation. So it would perturbate the mesh based on the constraints that you had, the rigid constraints and the load constraints, and it would perturbate during a time series and build a structure and say, I need that, I need this area to be reinforced, I don't need it. So it would trim space for structure and add structure. That was the beginnings of generative design, and that goes all the way back to 1999. So all this generative AI stuff, for the layman, it's text. It's creating a spreadsheet. It's compiling data or doing an analysis that's typical for, let's say, an entry level or data analyst. All right. But this generative AI in terms of engineering, that's been around since 1999. And we were using it in automotive through Hypermesh. Now, what's different in Fusion 360 is that it's more advanced. It's more advanced. It creates more complex structures, and you can use those structures immediately if you want to in additive manufacturing. And in many cases, you have to modify it for styling, for high-end manufacturing, high production manufacturing. You might have to modify it. But that's where expertise comes in. But the thing is that it's here, and it's been here for a long time. A lot of people don't realize it. Generative AI and engineering has been here since 1999. And a lot of people are like, oh, 3D printing is so advanced. 3D printing has been around for a long time. Stereolithography was used in automotive for a long time. You know, stereolithography, my first exposure and use of stereolithography was back in 1994. But these machines were $250,000 to use. And at that time, the materials, because it was what is called a photopolymer, a laser would solidify the liquid and then slowly create the part. But now the materials that are used in additive manufacturing are better plastics. Some of them are metals. So the additive manufacturing, stereolithography has advanced a lot since 1994. So 3D printing has been around for a long time. It just wasn't affordable for the masses. And the materials used are far better. The capabilities are far better now. Generative design has been around, to my knowledge, and I used it back in 1999. So this is not new. It's just everything's faster. And, you know, unfortunately, many people don't realize the smartest people in your society are the engineers. It's not the doctors, it's not the lawyers, it's the engineers of different disciplines, mechanical, chemical, electrical, but those are the smartest ones in your society. And these people have been using this type of technology going all the way back to the 1990s. And now all of a sudden, mainstream population is starting to get exposed to something that engineers have been exposed to for over 25 years. So, all right. So for Fusion 360, which is a newer software that came out by Autodesk a few years ago, but it's a very powerful software. And one of those features is the generative design feature. All right, but that's really coming off of like the Hypermesh days. Now, another little experiment that I did was more with Grok. You know, if I'm using a prompt it's almost exclusively Grok. I do a little bit of ChatGPT, but most of it's Grok. Now, through the ChatGPT, it's through maybe Copilot on PowerPoint or Excel, or if I am, searching something on the web, and then there's the AI assistant. You click that, and it's ChatGPT, and it'll give you, So when I do web search, it's ChatGPT. It's an AI search now. It's not the old way of doing it with Google. But with Grok, I've been doing these different experiments where you can read for, let's say, for medicine, you can read radiological scans, and it's very accurate. It can read a EKG, it's very accurate, an ECG, very accurate. It could look at slides, pathology slides, and to give you a summary of what you're looking at and what's the potential of a certain disease. You can load up blood work, and it'll give you a summary and hint that a potential disease is starting to emerge, or a patient may have it. So these AI prompts now can summarize large sets of data that's unstructured and give you something that's accurate. You can you can use AI instead. Grok has also like a Wikipedia version, but it looks like Grok just scraped Wikipedia. But if you're just not doing Grokpedia and you're just using Grok, and you're asking a question for research, like what is the definition of whatever, or compare the differences between utilitarianism versus egoism, and it's a great way to do research. But you got to think. It's not just copy paste. So living in that kind of world is important to understand. How do you use these AI tools to become more like, what's this guy's name, from Iron Man? Tony Stark. The idea that you have systems available to you, that if you are an intelligent individual, you can move faster. Now, the average person, they're not that smart, or they're lazy, and so they're not going to fully use the potentiality. The average person isn't going to understand generative design, or how to use it, or why to use it, because they don't have the creative ability, or they're too lazy. Now, in terms of art, now you're starting to get into generative painting and generative movies and all this stuff that could speed up the production process. I haven't done any of that where it was like generative movies or anything like that. But the thing is that except with Grok, you can have like a 6-second video where it take a picture and it generates it. So I've been playing around with how does it generate these different pictures. It almost seems as though it's taking the context of the picture, and then it's doing another time frame, taking the context of the picture, doing another time frame, context of the picture, and it's doing kind of like a Monte Carlo. So if you take the same picture and you do it 10 different times, you're going to get 10 different results. But there's a similar theme that the more you do, let's say 100 of these, they cluster in types of themes. So there is this almost Monte Carlo aspect to the generative movie design that's coming out of Grok. So using these types of AI systems is going to be important. But if you're using it during your education to supplant the skills that you need to learn to be productive, then this generative AI is going to hurt you, because you're not learning how to write. You're not learning how to do the mathematics. Right? Now, as you get to my age, you start forgetting some of the high-end mathematic entities or high mathematic identities so you have to like research, okay, if you have this type of polynomial and you're going to be doing a Schrodinger's equation, you know, how do you solve for blah, blah, blah? And then Grok would, you know, show you how to do it. But you got to know what to ask and why you're asking it. Well, if you don't learn it for your base, if you don't understand how to collapse the wave function, you know, in quantum mechanics, then you don't really know how to use the tool, right? So you can use the tool to do research. You can use the tool to remind you of something that you may have forgotten. You can use the tool to enhance your skills. But if you use the tool to supplant your skills, that's a big problem. Then you're going to have a population that doesn't know how to read, doesn't know how to write, doesn't know how to do mathematics. And we already have that problem today, before generative AI being massively implemented through ChatGPT. So don't think that AI has been around just you know, has been in existence in such a short amount of time because of ChatGPT. AI has been around for a long time. It's been in research centers, and it's been implemented through generative AI, especially in computer-aided engineering, going all the way back to 1999. So another experiment that I've done in Grok is creating a list, almost like a syllabus, of certain things that I would want to learn. All right, like what would you, let's say you wanted to learn about the top 10 philosophers. Who are they? What do they do? And create a syllabus or a rubric to learn that subject in a short amount of time. What do you need to watch? What do you need to read? What, you know, research articles should be the best to read or whatever. And they could summarize this and then put you on the path. So it's AI can be used as a personal tutor at a very high level if you know how to use this. Most people are too stupid to do it. They're not smart enough. But the thing is that you can, AI is right there at the edge where you can create your own tutor. And with what has been published on YouTube, what has been published in research articles, what's been published in books, when you couple all these together, the AI, syllabus, and understanding certain concepts in a quick manner, reading certain materials, watching certain materials, you now have all the modalities of a personalized education. You can learn anything, anything. If you have the will, you can learn anything now. And you don't need school. Anything. You pick the subject, you can learn anything. That's where we're at right now. And I've been experimenting with it, and it's working. It's working. So what this means is that standard education is no longer needed. Now, to socialize, to build friends and build social networks, that's important. To build a base of knowledge, to be able to be a productive citizen, that's important. And maybe that's why we need higher education. But if you have the will, you can learn anything. Molecular biology, mathematics, engineering, anything in the humanities. But you have to have the will. Most people won't be able to use these technologies to their full benefit because they're lazy. So that's my experiment that I've done with AI. It works. We're at a point that's very similar to the movie Iron Man with Tony Stark, you know, being able to develop the suit, the Iron Man suit, and doing all this generative part design and all this. If you know CAD, if you have capabilities of generative AI, if you know what you want to build, you can do this. This is now. This is not like in the future. It's now. But most people aren't smart enough to know how to do it. I know how to do this, but that's because my experience level is so much higher than most people out there in the public. So that's where we're at right now. But the average person that's using generative AI to write your essay, the average person in college that's using generative AI to do their math homework, you're doing a disservice to yourself because you're not learning the skills to be able to use the technology like I'm using it, to be able to go to the next level. And that's where the great divide is going to happen. There's a great divide in terms of socioeconomic, where people are rich versus people that are not. But there's also going to be the great divide of ones that know how to use AI and the ones that don't know how to use AI. And if you overuse it and not build skill sets, you're in the category of bad. You're not going to have the skill sets to survive. If you know how to use it and not to overuse it and to use your human creativity, you're going to be far superior to the other human beings out there. That's the great divide that's happening right now. And most people don't know how to use AI. And you're going to fall into the trap, just like in social media, where you're going to be just a consumer, you're going to be a passive user, and people are going to take advantage of you.
And innovate while minimizing the risk.
University policymakers have scrambled to stay ahead.
I think the realization over the past year and a half is the technology is outpacing our ability to detect it.
Vice Provost of Research Brian Berry leads one of UA Little Rock's committees tasked with creating clear campus-wide policy.
They're only talking about writing papers, right? This is far more of a bigger issue because when the student doesn't know how to write, they don't know how to create sentences and be able to build a research paper or write a novel or do analytical work and write a summary on that analytical work. They're not getting the skills. And when you don't have the skills, you won't be able to leverage the AI like I just discussed. If you don't understand certain chemistry, how are you going to leverage the AI to build new molecules? See the point? You got to have base knowledge. If you over-rely on AI during the base knowledge phase, you're not going to be able to leverage the tools. Perfect example. If someone doesn't understand engineering or doesn't understand how to draw in CAD, how are you going to leverage the AI tools in CAD? Can't. This is where most people, 80% of the population, is stupid.
On AI,
I think it really comes down to us helping students understand what's at risk, helping them understand that if they use AI in the right way, it's literally the most powerful tool that they've ever been able to use, and it will make huge differences. But if they use it in the wrong way, it could short-circuit their learning process.
the university is finalizing a policy that lets professors determine what AI use is acceptable in their classrooms as long as they clearly outline it in their syllabus. But for Fritz, who has a strict no AI policy, identifying it has been complicated and time-consuming.
So Phrasely is one of the softwares that I use. If I suspect AI use, then the first thing I do is I do use detection softwares. I actually use 8 different detection softwares.
If her suspicion is confirmed, she does meet with the student.
And if they can talk about the thing that they wrote about, then great. But a lot of times they can't.
Sounds like it's tedious and a lot more work for professors like yourself.
It certainly cuts into my life quite a bit. It at least has sometimes made teaching feel like policing.
And these detection methods are not foolproof. Students online say that they're caught in the middle.
I've been falsely accused by my university of using AI to write a paper.
My final paper got detected as 60% AI.
Well, we might be about to find out if I'm going to falsely get kicked out of college for...
Ashley Dunn was a senior at Louisiana State University when she was accused of using AI to write a short essay for a British literature class after a detection tool flagged her writing last year.
And I was like, am I going to fail this class? Am I going to get a 0? Every college takes plagiarism and that kind of thing very seriously. So I was just freaking out.
After communicating with her professor, Dunn says she was eventually given an A for the assignment, but the response to her on TikTok proves that this is a widespread issue.
A lot of people ended up making responses to my video, pretty much saying that they had gone through the same thing, but that they didn't really get as lucky and they ended up either getting 0s or failing the class. Some people recently have been making videos about, oh, my professor said that my essay was AI because I used an M dash, but that's just a regular way of writing, especially for a college level.
You're going to be asked to go out and venture into Gen AI?
Not all schools are anti-AI. Some are actually looking for ways to embrace it. Lori Kendall teaches an entrepreneurship class in the Fisher College of Business at The Ohio State University.
When Gen AI came out, I and every other instructor did, oh great, now what? Do we allow AI? Do we not allow AI?
This is where I disagree with that. I mean, she's right that generative AI just recently came out to the masses, all right? But generative AI has been around, from my experience of this, since 1999 in engineering with hypermesh, all right? Through perturbation analysis of mesh structures to develop structures that can withstand certain stresses, either thermal stresses or mechanical stresses. So generative AI has been around for a long time, like a long time. It wasn't textual. It wasn't generating text. That's where the big leap in AI happened with OpenAI, right? And ChatGPT. So I wish they used a different term. It's more like there must be a term that it's not generative AI. What people have been exposed to just recently is AI generated text, but not generative AI, because that's been around since 1999 through my experience. That was a little bit earlier than that because of the development of hypermesh, but the actual usage of hypermesh in engineering was in 1999.
Anyway.
She now encourages her students to use AI to critically examine their original work and as a learning aid.
A lot of people, might use AI just to get assignments done, plagiarism, but I like to use AI just for a deeper understanding.
Rachel Gervais is a first-year student majoring in air transportation.
I oftentimes
generative AI or prompt AI, maybe that's what I should use the term prompt. Generative AI, I don't like the term. But the thing is that using AI, all right, prompt AI, you can dive into a subject matter and it'll give you a really good lit review of that subject matter if you do this properly. So you'll get and in medical school, it's a style of learning in medical school where you are bombarded with so much information in such a short amount of time. You have to speed up your learning process. You're gonna have to be able to read faster, obtain knowledge, get to the point, and go build off of that quickly, right? So you're reading tons of information and you have to boil down the essence of it quickly. Prompt engineer, prompt AI is going to allow for individuals to learn any subject matter quickly, but you have to learn it. You can't just copy paste it. You got to understand what the nuances are. What's the compare and contrast? You have to understand. So it's a great way to summarize lit reviews, but you still need to dive in to the actual citations, because this prompt AI may generate false information. And not only that, it's a good start. It's like sometimes people did research to just start to create a process of research, maybe using Wikipedia to get a broad spectrum of a particular subject, and then narrow it down and then go into the scholarly work and do your lit review. So one step, there's two really important ways to learn. One is being able to obtain information quickly, summarize that information quickly, and understand it. And I think a lot of students, they're using ChatGPT to get the information quickly, to summarize the information quickly, but they don't understand it, because they feel as though their homework is just a task and not about learning. All right. Another part of learning is that you take it and you do a broad spectrum, a broad understanding of the subject matter, and then you narrow it down to the breadth. So you have the breadth, the depth of the subject, and then the application. So you can use generative AI in this kind of learning structure. Get information quickly, summarize it quickly, understand it. And then you take that more microcosm way of learning and apply it to a larger learning concept where it's breadth, depth, and application. So you know the landscape, you dive in to it, you zoom into part of that landscape, and you go deeper, and then whatever you know about that subject, in the depth of it, what's the application? So let's say in the context of organic chemistry, all right? You have different subjects within organic chemistry. That's the landscape, the breadth. And summarizing, let's say, the key 10 subject matters in organic chemistry. And you can zoom into one area where it's dealing with, let's say, the usage of double bonded carbon molecules. Not single bonded, but double bonded, with a certain group, the add-on group, let's say a nitrogen group, all right? So that's drilling down deeper. And then an application of using that particular molecule for a synthesis of a reaction. That's the power of AI. So you have to have the method to be able to learn. Get the information quickly, summarize it quickly, understand it, right? And you do that at the breadth level, the depth level, and the application level. And it'll speed up your learning process. Just like what we were doing in medical school, where you had to consume a lot of information under stress and under a time constraint. And you'll speed up. What will happen is what you've learned in the application for that particular subject can be carried on. Okay, you learned something about double bonded carbon that's attached to, let's say, some sort of nitrogen group, right? That application can be built on. Okay, that can be used for a certain synthesis, for some sort of reaction synthesis. Well, what about speeding up that reaction using a catalyst. All right, now you're building on that knowledge. And that's just in chemistry. With this example, you can do this in anything. You can do it in medicine, you can do it in sciences, you can do it in philosophy, in literature. You can speed up your knowledge. With this method, you can take a 4-year education and learn it in less than 2 years.
To create questions regarding this topic so I not only get a better understanding of the actual material, but I also can test and see what I need to maybe focus on even more.
If you don't use AI or the next technology that comes along to be more effective, you're not going to be competitive in the job market. The job market's changing right underneath your feet.
As the chief academic officer, I get to decide on academic integrity issues, honor code, and violations.
Ravi Belamkonda is Executive Vice President and Provost at Ohio State University. He says he was struck by one alleged violation last year, a student accused of using AI. It was a case of cheating, he says, but it made him think.
What if there existed technology that indeed lets our students produce work of very high quality? Should we investigate this a little further?
Belamkonda spearheaded Ohio State's new AI fluency initiative, which requires
using AI. If I was the president of a university, I would say using AI to be able to obtain information instead of spending hours researching 10 books and summarizing that information, but understanding it, and then taking that understanding and writing a paper that is not generated by AI is the proper way of doing it. Because what you're doing is you're speeding it up, but you have to make sure that you check the sources. If they're scholarly sources, peer-reviewed, depending on what the subject matter is, but peer-reviewed, then it should be in your paper, in your essay or whatever. But you have to write that essay. And I think that what happens is that you get a computer, all right? Some people don't want to write their essay and teachers don't want to read the chicken scratch, but they have to write it in class. And you have proctors walking around making sure that they're not using a ChatGPT system, or you kick them out. Or you can have a login system where it's, you know, it's a word processor and it doesn't allow you to load up anything else on your screen. But the bottom line is this: they need to write the paper. Now, you know, they can have spell check and all that, you know, with in their word processor, but they write it in class. And that forces them. Then you look at students today, they're having a hard time thinking, they're having a hard time writing, they have a hard time doing mathematics. And these are people that are coming from good schools. And it's because of TikTok and social media and the overuse of generative AI. They're not using the tool right. And if people use the tool the way I just said to use it, then people will be able to be more productive and more efficient.
Students across academic disciplines learn and use AI tools.
The trick is to figure out, like any human interaction with technology, what can we offload to technology and what do we need to add the value to?
Exactly.
So
I just said, one, you have to be creative in whatever discipline you want to do it in. And the thing is that this generative AI is a means to do the research faster. So how is it any different from going to the library back in the old days before book catalogs were computerized? You had to go to the index. It was a bunch of the card index. You slide out the drawer and you look at the card, and then you got to look for the book, and then and it takes you forever to find 10 books. Well, now everything is digitized, and you can now get a PDF and you can do word search, and you are able to speed the research and do your lit review, right? Well, with this AI, it could speed that up even faster. It goes, okay, I'm researching this subject. What are the top things, the top concepts that need to be understood, and what's the primary source? In 30 seconds, you get that. You read it over, you get an overview, that's the landscape, and then you dive in to the actual text for building a deeper understanding of that subject, and therefore your application. So if you do breadth, depth, and application on anything you're learning, medicine, science, humanity, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It works for everything. Breadth, depth, and application, then boom, you're speeding up the process of learning. It's not, it's already been figured out. You got these clowns that are running these universities, and they're still, how do we use this to make society better and improve the efficiency of the job, of your job or of your corporation? I just said it. It's not that hard. Everything's just going to be sped up. So what you were able to do in 10 years, you're going to be able to do in 1 year.
Of that creation of those rules. That's prompted experimentation across the disciplines, like music professor Tina Talent's AI and music class, which explores innovative uses of the technology.
I always start the class by asking them to think about a challenge in their field. At that point, we're not even talking about AI. I just want them to identify something that either they've run up against or that their students or their colleagues have.
One member of her class, tuba instructor and doctoral student Will Resch, is using AI to analyze airflow into his instrument over thousands of repetitions. The data will help guide students on how to play the perfect note. Another, Natalia Moreno Buitrago, is a music education grad student studying how babies acquire musical knowledge. She used to spend hours combing through home recordings of research subjects, listening for moments when parents or caregivers sing or hum around the infant. Now AI does this for her.
If we critically examine the tools that we're engaging with and are actively
so speeding up the analysis, like for in finance, you can use certain algorithms that have been developed to there's signals, right? There's signals in a data set, in a price movement. There's like a harmonic, right? So there have been algorithms that have been developed in signal processing that you feed in a price curve, and you can actually find entry points or exit points for a particular asset class or a particular stock, right? And it's just putting the time series. Sometimes you have to smooth it out. Sometimes you have to average it or whatever, but you process it through an algorithm, a signal processing algorithm, which is commonly used in electrical engineering, right? And it will give you a certain buy sell signal, right? In a way that's kind of like, that's algorithmic trading. Now, if you build up large data sets and you feed it in and you add in some learning, machine learning, now you're moving into the realm of artificial intelligence, where a lot of people mix these two things together, artificial intelligence and machine learning. There's a debate on like, where does machine learning stop and artificial intelligence begins? There's a fuzzy area there. I think once you have a recursive kind of process that can build off of that knowledge, then you start moving into artificial intelligence. But either way, it's like a machine learning. But these types of systems of taking a data set that has a signal in there, or signals, and you're using an algorithm, a machine learning algorithm, or some other algorithm, or taking a neural network, which is an algorithm, and finding what that pattern is for pattern recognition within that series of data, price series of data, or a sound series of data, and coming up with some sort of analysis and recommendation of what that is, right? Some probability of it, or whatever you're looking for. You could speed that up now with artificial intelligence. Back in the day before machine learning, and you just had these mathematical equations, you fed in the data, and it would signal process that data and give you an output. That's kind of old coding way of doing it, right? So it was more algorithmic based. And then the machine learning, where you're adding in more data sets and it's speeding up the process to get the same data. And then having it totally unstructured and using neural networks to learn what that data set really means and how do you benefit from it, how do you improve it, and that artificial intelligence will do it. Well, it's just speeding up the research. Back in the day, it was slow grind. You had to go one data set at a time through the algorithm. Then you could loop it with a for loop, and you just for next loop, right? And now you're being able to crunch more data. Well, with the world of big data and AI, you can have even more data and you crunch it. But the bottom line is that you get back to the same thing. What is the research question? What are you doing? So AI is just going to speed it up. But if you don't have the base knowledge of why you're doing what you're doing, you can't benefit from this. So if people circumvent their education and not learn, formally or informally, but they don't learn a subject, get the information, summarize it, and learn it, if you don't do that, you're not going to be able to benefit.
Development of them, I think we can do some pretty incredible things.
But inevitably, these tools also bring major disruption.
And the thing is that the PhDs out there are going to be the ones that benefit the most, the fastest from AI, because they know that they went through the gauntlet of doing the lit reviews, coming up with the research question, diving down into the data, doing the experiments, right? Summarizing, doing the statistics, right? They know that long process. AI has crunched that process down. The average person hasn't done a PhD. The average person won't even know what the research process is. They don't even get it. They don't understand what it means to do something for 3 years researching. They don't get it. They don't understand. It's not in their understanding and mindset. So they're not going to benefit from it. So what did you see? Who's using the AI properly? Researchers. Doing fellowship work and postdoctoral work. Ones that are working on their PhD. Those are the ones that are using AI properly. But how did they get there? They learned a subject. Now, it doesn't matter if it's formally or informally. Learn the subject. If you apply the PhD mindset, you will learn faster.
To academia and to the jobs students hope to someday fill.
How do we go through a transformative moment like this with the disruptions that it is going to cause, and yet do this in a way that ultimately is additive to us as a society, that it improves our lot as human beings?
So you use AI. So you use AI the way I just mentioned for research and learning. Customize your learning. AI, it can make everybody Tony Stark if you have the creativity, and AI can be used as your personal tutor to learn anything. Anything. You want to design a bioweapon, you'll be able to learn it too, right? If you want to try to end world hunger, you can build up a course material to learn on how to end world hunger. You can learn anything. So it's a personalized tutor. Now, you can use generative AI also to write code. So for people that are coders, well, we won't need as many coders. But I think that's good, because in the Tony Stark world, it's just asking the computer, make an app. I want it to do this, this, and this, and this. Well, Base 44, I think it's called. But there are companies out there that will generate code based on a prompt. So you build apps and you chunk it, just like a big mathematical problem. You have to chunk it and solve it in parts. You build an app in parts by just telling the computer what you want. So now we're getting to the point of Tony Stark. Computer, I want you to do this. Computer, I want you to, now if you're doing research, computer, I want an aluminum structure, metallurgic structure, to be lighter weight. Okay. And to have a certain force, to be able to withstand a certain force at a certain thickness, certain section modulus. Okay, so it's developing that. All right, and then you go, computer, I want to move it where it is lighter, but more translucent. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is that Star Trek, in, I think, Star Trek 4, the movie, Scotty is talking to a computer, and he wants to create a new type of material, and it's a see-through aluminum type material, and he's using a computer to do it. That's where we're at. That's where we're at. That's the cutting edge right there, where you're working with the computer and you have the creativity and you go step by step by step by step to be able to get to a new type of material, a new type of synthesis for a chemical reaction, a new type of novel, a new type of whatever. But you got to use the creativity. That's where we're at. That's the cutting edge. The average person doesn't understand where we're at because they're too stupid. But the ones that are actually using this technology, that's the frontier. That's where we're at right now. We're creating exotic materials and substances and computational algorithms that would have taken years to create without the AI. The AI can't do it by itself. It needs the creativity of a human being. So what's going to prevent, what's going to be the bottleneck of AI isn't so much the computation of AI and how many chips there are and what the frontier models are. The bottleneck of AI is the creativity of the human being. And what's the ratio in the society between the doers and the lazy ones? That's the bottleneck. Now, in terms of work, the AI is going to be able to not just generate code to create an app, but that's going to help you because now you're in the Tony Stark world and you're going to be able to create more apps that are specific to your needs. So software is going to die. We're seeing the death of software. And what it's going to be is generative. AI is going to generate what you need. So as AI is starting to ramp up what you need and customize, software is going to start to go down. Applications, software from software companies is going to start going down because you won't need them. The AI is going to make it for you. If you are able to have the patience and the time and the beta testing, you'll be able to build databases and accounting softwares for your business and have business analytics that are built, and you don't pay, let's say, Salesforce or Oracle an annual fee to use their software because you've homegrown it. So software is going to start to die. That's why the software companies are spending so much money on this, because they know that their main cash flow is going to die. And they're hoping that people that are accessing their models are going to be their new source of revenue. But as technology becomes more efficient, as AI starts to become more efficient and more constrained onto the desktop, you're going to have your own supercomputer. Instead of these miles and miles of servers, you'll just have your stack on your desktop, generating your own personal model. Generating your AI is generating what you need. That's where the future is going to be. It's not there yet, but it's going to get closer and closer to the way the brain works. Constrained in a space, using less energy. Now, in terms of back office operations, generative AI is going to be just like using macros in scripts for Excel. It's going to help you to automate. Instead of, let's say a Excel model going into different databases, and then you have to do update and download, and then, and then maybe rearrange in a pivot table or whatever. It just does it automatically. You create scripts, you create macros. Before AI, you create macros and scripts to be able to automate certain things in Excel. So in the whole Office suite, when you're building PowerPoints and all this stuff, it's just going to help you automate it. The AI is an automated feature very similar to macros and scripts. Everyone's all scared because they're using this fancy word called generative AI. But the AI that's generating this is creating a script that you use. So people that know how to use the script and when to use it and what to use it will benefit. That's where this is going. And then by creating scripts and creating automation within the back office, you're going to be more productive and you're going to need less people. This is the reason why the youth need to start thinking, learn something, learn a skill, use the tools that are available, and build a business. This idea of working for a big corporation is dying. You have to build a business. This is a good thing because it's going to create more economic activity. There's also risk-taking that has to be, and 80% of the society doesn't want to take risks. It's only 20% of the society that's taking risks. But that 80% are going to have to take risks because that's how you're going to survive. So in a kind of a strange way, we're moving kind of towards a hunting-gathering society. But it's not going out and killing buffalo. It's going out and having your own business and getting your clients instead of going to work mindlessly and getting a paycheck because you're just one of the pay ones. I've already solved the problem. But these academics are still like going, what do we do? What do we do? I don't know. We got to figure it out. I don't know.
Says, but one that students should help tackle. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Fred DeSan-Lazaro in Columbus, Ohio.
70% of the college administrators and faculty worry AI will reduce the perceived value of a degree. If you know how to think, you will have your own tutor. Now, usually, when you are homeschooling, they come out, the kids know more than what was being taught in a public school. It's about at par with a private school in most cases. I don't think a homeschooling is better than private schooling. I think it's at par. But there are some private schools that are worse than homeschooling, all right? But the best private schools are about at par with homeschooling. Homeschooling is way better than public schooling, by far. Now, you just extend that. When you have your own personal AI, and you can learn anything, and you leverage what MIT's online courses for free, or Coursera or whatever, and then all of this research that's been published at the different databases for peer-reviewed journals, right? That you can get from your local library, and you get the PDF files. You can learn anything. Most people want to be spoon-fed, and then they don't even learn. They're getting spoon-fed and they don't even know anything. So it's not just perceived value of a degree. AI has basically destroyed education. You don't need a college degree. You need to know how to learn. That's all you need. But most people will fall into the trap that they won't use the technology properly. They'll be lazy. And it'll turn into a Wall-E world where everyone is diabetic and fat. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Max 35. Max 35 is 35 parts per million, or Cleanse, which is 30 parts per million. They're at different price points. Take either one. Take a teaspoon a day every day. Swish in your mouth, gargle, about 20 seconds, and swallow it. It maintains your mucosal barrier, helps with the health of your oral pharynx and your oral cavity, and helps the health of your epithelial cells. When you do that, you're boosting up your immune system. Take it every day. If you're not feeling well because of the cold season, guess what? Take a tablespoon or two a day, and then go back to your maintenance dose. Take it every day, boost up that immune system. And also, get the Clarity Factor. Clarity Factor will get rid of that brain fog so you can concentrate. And over time, you're going to improve that neuroplasticity and speed up your cognition and help with memory. By doing this every day, you're improving your neuroplasticity and those dendritic connections. Please go to my store, take this every day, drink it with filtered water. Omega-3. Omega-3 will help with your cardiovascular health. It'll help to control your lipid profile and bring down inflammation and reduce the stickiness of your red blood cells. This is super important to take every day for cardiovascular health. Drink it with filtered water. And vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 is a gene expression cofactor, super important for your cells to perform properly. D3 is also very important to get rid of cells that are infected, and D3 helps for those cells to go into apoptosis. Vitamin D3 helps to absorb calcium. When you do resistance training, you are helping to improve your bone density. And vitamin D3 also helps with your cardiovascular health by helping to reduce calcium depositing and helps to pull some of that calcium depositing around plaque already. Stack it with vitamin K2, MK7 molecule, and you get added benefits. And ubiquinol. Ubiquinol soaks up free radicals, helps the health of the mitochondria, boosts up your energy levels, and protects your neurons. Ubiquinol is the most bioavailable form of CoQ10 that you can purchase. You can't get anything better than what I have on my store. I have the best CoQ10 that you can buy. It's ubiquinol. All right? Please go to my store and get it. It's very important to protect your neurons. And you can do that by taking ubiquinol. All right. All right, let's listen into Cass Jordan about New York City going to hell.
The new Bearskin Hoodie 4.0 claims to be the most advanced, waterproof tactical hoodie ever made. Is it real?
This is a brazen crime. 11 NYPD vehicles, windows smashed outside of this precinct, and at this hour, that suspect is still on the loose.
So, as the first socialist mayor in New York City history gets ready to take the throne, Crime here is reaching new proportions, not just on the streets, but below the streets. And it seems like wherever you go, lawlessness is lurking, including at the DMV, where international fugitives are getting driver's licenses. And while New York City is enabling and protecting its criminals, it's also losing the few police it's got left.
The NYPD, meant to protect and serve.
I thank officers for the work that they do.
But with grueling hours, no contracts since August, and uncertainty with the incoming mayor, the police union says it's time for the city to protect them.
Smashed windshields, back windows, and broken mirrors.
That's crazy. It's not unfortunate. I mean, there's no reason to harm city material like that.
The president said last night that the mayor of New York City wants to come and talk about making the streets safer, open up for discussion. But I'm not going to meet with anybody. President Trump doesn't want to meet with anybody. But let's get together and work it together. We'd much rather work with these sanctuary cities than keep, putting our agents at extreme risk.
The shortage is even impacting and increasing 911 response times. With Zoran Mamdani headed to City Hall, the union says some officers worry about the future of the NYPD.
So, to quell fears of an imminent public safety disaster, our new mayor has decided to retain the current chief of police. But what nobody's talking about is police chiefs. They don't tend to last too long in sanctuary cities if they defy the rulers of that city. Something nobody's going to be able to do once Mr. Mamdani takes the helm of America's largest city, as his socialist plans for our country will be fully embraced by New York City's left field city council, which has plans to rubber stamp everything he wants, transforming this place at warp speed. And this is going to happen much faster than anybody is expecting, with the most controversial plans aimed squarely at the NYPD, who will see its funding frozen as a new Department of Community Safety replaces them with an army of social workers who won't be police, but are supposed to police dangerous individuals on our streets and in our subways, while freeing up police to stop violent crime, which is already spiraling out of control. Which brings us to the real reason many people are afraid of what might soon happen to the NYPD. They've got the lowest headcount they've had in decades, and that makes them less effective now than they've ever been. And the biggest problem is seasoned officers are quitting the force in record numbers, because every single day they put their lives on the line to stop the bad guys who just get set free again and again. Meanwhile, our police are forced to work mandatory overtime at a time when their efforts are essentially an exercise in futility, which, as you're about to see, has essentially made this place the Wild West.
You can't get off me. Get off me.
Right, so that was over a subway seat. You got people duking it out at 8 o'clock in the morning. No police around. Why? Because if the police show up to that crime and something else happens over here, and they should have been here instead of here, well, I mean, you see how this is working out. And one has to wonder if the new mayor's plan to flood our streets and subways with an army of social workers will do anything in situations like this. When a test program of a similar nature shows how it may doom the city, even though the mayor has plans to expand that. And ask yourself, what would a social worker who's not a police officer do if the next situation here happens again?
Sit down, Wilson. Sit down.
This Black Friday gift cleans your retainer at the touch of a button. No more brushing or tablets. Over 4 years ago, our team of engineers knew there had to be a quicker, easier, and more effective way to deep clean oral appliances.
Sit down, Wilson. Sit down.
Oh, the mannequin. That's a mannequin. People are moving away. I can't blame them. This is a tough situation. We've got somebody who needs help, and So this is the type of situation that the social workers are supposed to help out with. This is going to be their turf in the subway. This New York Post article says Zoran Mamdani wants social workers responding to 911 calls, but a test program is already failing. Look at this. Apparently this program was launched in 2021, and 60% of the calls to the social worker hotline were deemed ineligible. Wow. Plus, the new mayor has plans to dismantle other departments already within the NYPD, like the anti-riot division. What a time to do that.
That people are going to look at it and say, well, how can you get to those positive outcomes of public safety if you disagree on things like the strategic response group? She wants to keep it. You want to get rid of it. Where did you land on that?
You know, I continue to have my concerns around strategic response group because there are concerns around the fact of whether we can ensure that we're not only protecting New Yorkers, but also New Yorkers' ability to exercise their First Amendment rights. And I see with the commissioner shared belief in the importance of that exercise, as well as being able to protect New Yorkers. And I think when you look at No Kings, the protest where we had tens of thousands of New Yorkers come out in the streets and voice their displeasure with the federal administration that has been going after them time and time again, we saw that that was not only an exercise of their First Amendment rights, but also something that they were able to do.
Yeah, this is fitting. This is why we're talking about public safety, right?
Constitutional rights. Wait a minute. ICE is trying to get rid of the illegal aliens that are in this country. They're here illegally. They don't have any constitutional rights. They're here illegally. They need to get out. Period. This guy is pushing for open borders. Because if you don't follow the law, if you have a society where there's huge amounts of illegal immigration and you have a government that's not willing to follow the law and prosecute these people and get them out, then you don't have a border. You don't have a country. This is the problem with Mamdani. He's a communist. He's a communist. He is Napoleon the Pig on Animal Farm.
Going.
It is fitting.
So just to stay on that for a moment, the strategic response group, is it going away, or is that a negotiation that she wanted to keep it?
No, I've made clear my concerns. I don't think that the NYPD strategic response group should be how we respond to protests, and that's
so. If there's riots, they don't want to have riot police control the crowd and protect the city.
No, and so what will happen is another BLM riot is going to take place. Watch. Under Mamdani, most likely with Trump in office, could even be this midterm election cycle, we're going to have riots in New York City.
He points to the recent No Kings event, which was not exactly the crowd you would expect to tear the city apart. I went, I checked it out. There were no riots. It was peaceful, but there have been plenty of other riots happening in New York City. ICE agents are getting attacked. We've got massive mobs that come out of nowhere and are just ready to go at a moment's notice to bring chaos to the streets of the city. And if you take away the resources the police have, you make them even less effective than they already are. This is a disaster. Furthermore, the anti-police sentiment in this city is still alive and well, as you're about to see. This is crazy. They attack the police cars.
NYPD vehicles are being towed after both marked and unmarked cruisers were vandalized overnight.
That's crazy. It's quite unfortunate. I mean, there's no reason to harm city.
Unless you hate the police.
Smashed windshields, back windows, and broken mirrors are what's left after police say someone damaged the vehicles around 11:30 last night outside of the 116th Police Precinct at 244th Street and North Conduit Avenue and Laurelton Place.
That's crazy. They just went out and attacked the police cars, disabling those vehicles. Now the officers cannot use those vehicles to respond to emergencies. Who knows how long it's going to take for them to get replaced? And this is another way to defund your police force. If you allow attacks against them and crime against them and in the city overall to go up, and you don't increase their funding to deal with it or help them hire new officers, something they're struggling to do, they're going to be even less effective. And officer morale here is already super low. Our cops are overworked, and when they do catch the bad guy, he gets released. Speaking of which, the guy who attacked these police cars, they caught him. But guess what? He's free. He's out on bail. Says he was arrested and charged with reckless endangerment because he used his vehicle in a dangerous way when officers apprehended him. 14 counts of criminal mischief, resisting arrest, and 2 counts of criminal possession of a weapon. The judge let him go on supervised release because the charges are not eligible for bail. So the guy's free because of our laws. That's just a slap in the face to the hard work these officers do. And what does it tell the criminal? It tells the criminal that there aren't any consequences. It tells the criminal that if you go and smash up a bunch of police cars, it's not really a big deal here. They'll let you go.
The NYPD, meant to protect.
Alaska Energy Metals is on a mission to unlock one of the largest untapped nickel and critical mineral deposits in the U.S., the Nikolai Project.
The NYPD, meant to protect and serve.
I thank officers for the work that they do.
But with grueling hours, no contract since August, and uncertainty with the incoming mayor, the police union says it's time for the city to protect them.
We deserve to get paid like the professionals that we are.
The data speaks for itself. Since October of last year, 3,668 officers have left the force. The NYPD's current headcount, 33,745.
Wow.
A stark contrast to 25 years ago.
Every day, 10 cops quit. They're losing 300 police officers a month. And you know what's really interesting about that? The population of the city has grown since we had an all-time high of 40,000 police. Now, if the population grows and the laws here protect criminals more, don't you think you need more police to match that? Well, we've got less police. We should actually have around 42,000 police officers on the force, but got about 10,000 cops, less than that, at a time when laws have been passed that enable criminals instead of putting them in jail. So we got more people living here, we got more criminals getting released, and we have less police to deal with it. But not only are we short all of these officers, the most important thing seems to be for the mayor to maintain people's right to riot and our sanctuary city status above all else, which has not made this place any safer, and the federal government is very much aware of that. And they want to come fix it, but it doesn't look like they'll be able to.
New York City? I plan on being in New York City in the near future. We're going to do operations in New York City. We know in New York City, me and Mayor Adams at one point had an agreement to let ICE enter Rikers Island so we can arrest the public safety threats and the safety and security of that facility, but the city council shut it down. So we're going to be coming to New York City. We're already there now. I mean, teams are there now. But we will increase the enforcement presence in New York City, again, because they're a sanctuary city, and we know we have an issue there with public safety threats hitting the street every day.
Right, and the deal with the current mayor, which was stopped by the city council that plans to pass everything the new mayor wants, was to allow ICE to go into the jails and arrest criminals who they know are in the country illegally, who are in the jail, in custody, and are disarmed, and are not in a public environment where they can try to run away, where they can try to resist arrest, where they can possibly injure the general public in some manner. The safest place to arrest criminals is when they're already in custody. But nope, we're not going to do that. We're going to release the criminals. We're going to make ICE go find them on the street, and we're going to disable the riot division, and we're going to have social workers. New York City is headed in the wrong direction here from a public safety perspective.
So I asked the mayor-elect about his plans for the future of the department.
That retention crisis is linked to the fact that we are asking officers to do far more than we used to.
He says the mental health crisis in the city is taking officers away from responding to real crime.
So our vision for creating a Department of Community Safety is also one that would be tasked with taking on the mental health crisis, homelessness crisis, and allowing officers to do police work.
Are you willing to work with the Police Benevolence Association to help rectify the gap here?
I'm willing to work with anyone and everyone.
Oh yeah? Even ICE? But that's besides the point. Look, New York City already has one of the worst humanitarian homelessness crises. People here are prevented from getting the help that they need. Involuntary commitment programs may find a person who is in dire need and doesn't know they need such help, and they may commit that person for a few days, maybe 72 hours. But if you've got somebody who's lived on the streets for decades and is in need of a long-term solution and a long-term treatment plan, releasing them after just a few hours isn't going to help them. And many times, folks, they're committed, they're brought somewhere, but then they're released, they go right back. There's no real plan to help these individuals. And some of these folks, sadly, may be beyond the ability of social workers to help. We already have social workers. Where the city's already paying contractors to go into the subway and do outreach. And if it was working, we wouldn't have people living on our subways anymore, sadly, but we still do.
Yeah, I think the President said last night that the mayor of New York City wants to come and talk about making the streets safer, open up for discussion. But I'm willing to meet with anybody. President Trump's willing to meet with anybody. But let's get together and work it together. We'd much rather work with these sanctuary cities than keep, putting our agents at extreme risk, going out in the community and arresting public safety treatment. They could have arrested them in the safety and security of the jail. So we welcome any conversation, but if they don't want to assist, they want to keep, pushing back and impeding our efforts, then we're going to just send more teams there. We're going to plug the zone.
So that is the border czar, Tom Homan. But the problem is the new mayor's already made it pretty clear what he thinks about the border czar and working with ICE.
When we asked Tom Homan, all he had to answer for that cruelty was a smirk.
I don't know. To me, doesn't look like there's going to be any cooperation here. To me, it looks like the new mayor is going to stand by his mandate, which he was elected on, to resist President Trump and ICE and make sure New York City remains a sanctuary at all costs. That's what I think is going to happen. I think he's going to come in and he's going to move much quicker than anybody's predicting. I think he's going to pass a whole bunch of stuff real fast because the city council will cooperate. So his agenda is going to take off. It's going to take off like a rocket ship. Will it work? That's the question on everybody's mind. I have my own opinions on this, but what do you think? See you in the next video.
New York's going to shit. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Goodnight Formula. Why? Because New York is turning communist, and it might be coming to a theater near you. And you're going to need to sleep and be able to concentrate to fight this new threat to America. Good Night Formula has tryptophan, melatonin, and GABA, and passion flower that allows you to get into 3 to 5 cycles of REM sleep a night and deep sleep. It's super important to be well rested in the morning, to detoxify your central nervous system, and to consolidate memory. With good sleep regularly, you're going to slow down the aging process. If you're sleep deprived chronically, you're increasing your chances of early onset of dementia. Please go to my store, take it every night, and be well rested and slow down the aging process. Digestive enzyme complex helps to reduce the load on your pancreas. It helps to digest proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids. And when you do that, your digestion will be easier, less disruptive. Now, digestive enzyme complex also has bromelain in it. And bromelain has an added feature. It's fibrinolytic, so it's going to break up clots. The digestive enzyme complex has the proteolytic enzymes to break up glycoproteins, which is super important, especially in the winter season. Trust me on this. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the digestive enzyme complex. Olive leaf extract. This will bring down inflammation and help your lipid profile. This will help with your immune system and your cardiovascular system. So it's dual purpose. Take it every day. It's a great way and cheaply to boost up your immune system and to help with your cardiovascular health. Now, heirloom barley. Heirloom barley detoxifies your body, brings down inflammation, and soaks up free radicals through superoxide dismutase. When you do this regularly, you're going to help with your vascular system and reduce plaque formation, bringing down inflammation at your brain level, at your neuron level, will protect the myelin sheath, because over-inflammation will eventually degrade that myelin sheath and your neurons won't perform as well. By detoxifying your body and bringing down inflammation, you're protecting your neuron. So taking this will protect your nerve. And this will help with your immune system and your endocrine system. So please get the heirloom barley. This is a month supply. Take it every day. So a great stack to bring down inflammation and detoxify your body, the heirloom barley. Take the olive leaf extract to help with your immune system and your cardiovascular system. Take the digestive enzyme complex to help with your pancreatic health. And take the Goodnight formula to help with your sleep pattern. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5, all caps, discount the number 5. You get $5 off. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. All right, let's listen to Hill about Mamdani.
Good morning. Welcome to Rising. We've got a great show for you today. We can smell the turkey from here, can't we? It's so close, yet so far.
Happy Thanksgiving to you, Robin.
Happy Thanksgiving. We're almost there.
We're almost there.
Tomorrow.
It's Thanksgiving Eve. I'm really excited to just take a break and celebrate with my family.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Me as well. I'm wearing really fuzzy socks because it's so cold in here. I just finally decided to commit to that.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a nice little thing. Yeah. See, around the holidays, the cozy gear is always the best.
Indeed. All right. Coming up on Rising, Trump made a jab at Democratic lawmakers during yesterday's White House turkey pardon.
And we'll have some updates on the Russia-Ukraine peace plan.
Along with War Secretary Pete Hegseth's orders to review comments made by Arizona Senator Mark Kelly.
We'll also discuss young men embracing the quarter zip lifestyle. Have you heard of that?
I have no idea what that is. So your guess is as good as mine.
But first, we'll start, as always, Robbie, what's on your radar?
Well, New York City Mayor
Extra absorbent, even for your messiest meals. Family Fair napkins. Elevate every day.
What is a registered agent?
It's simple. A registered agent is a person or company with some...
Well, New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani is putting together a team, and one of the people on that team is Alex Vitale, a professor of sociology at Brooklyn College, and the author of a provocative little book called The End of Policing. That's right. The new mayor has picked to work on community safety issues, one of the leading intellectuals behind the Abolish the Police movement. Well, that's very interesting, of course, given that I was assured by many liberal friends that, well, Mamdani isn't actually serious about abolishing or defunding the police, and that when he tweeted over and over again that he wanted to do just that, he was joking, lying, paying no attention to what the mayor of New York said when he said what he said it 5 years ago. It's ancient history. Okay. Surely when Mamdani said queer liberation means defund the police, he didn't mean defund the police, right? No, that's crazy talk. I think we should try something else. I think we should take what Mamdani said back then seriously. I think he really does have some very unpopular, frankly very dangerous ideas about policing, namely that his city, New York City, would be safer with fewer police, or perhaps fewer resources for the police, or maybe no police at all. And that is the ideology of Alex Vitale, who Mamdani has picked to consult him on community safety issues. In Vitale's book, he writes, quote, "The problem is not police training, police diversity, or police methods. The problem is the dramatic and unprecedented expansion and intensity of policing in the last 40 years, a fundamental shift in the role of police in society. The problem is policing itself." It's a pretty clear mission statement. The problem is not police training, diversity, or methods. Now, most people, even I think most progressives, well, they don't believe that policing is itself the problem, do they? They might have issues with the kinds of policing they see in their communities, police brutality, racial profiling, etc. But they don't think that abolishing the police is the answer. They think we need better and more competently trained police. Well, that's not how Vitale sees it, though. He literally thinks we can get by with a lot less policing. Now, in a negative review of Vitale's book, the liberal website Vox, Matt Iglesias wrote that Vitale fails to grapple with compelling evidence that more cops means less crime. Iglesias writes that, quote, "There's a substantial literature in economics and sociology arguing that more police on the beat equals less violent crime. One effort to quantify this precisely is a 2018 Review of Economics and Statistics article. It estimates, based on a big set of police and crime data from large and mid-sized cities between 1960 and 2010, that every $1 spent on extra police generates about $1.63 in social benefits, primarily by reducing murders. Iglesias continues that I found the book didn't contain an answer to the question about what a huge reduction in the number of police would mean for violent crime, end quote. Well, we know what would happen if we had.
Food security is national security. Phosphate powers America's farmers, but global competitors like Russia and China threaten to control our supply.
Well, we know what would happen if we had fewer cops, many fewer cops on the streets, on the subway, watching convenience stores, keeping an eye on public parks, close at hand to answer distress calls when fights break out, or mentally ill people crash a fast food restaurant, or when gangs of teenagers consider a carjacking or shoplifting spree. We would have more of all those incidents of crime. Furthermore, when you have fewer police detectives, the police solve fewer crimes. And this is very important, very key. When violent crimes go unsolved, it encourages further violence. The data on that is abundantly clear. You want to solve murders so you can prevent murders in the future. So does this sound like a good plan, the right agenda for a community to you? Is this what you want for your community? Is this what New Yorkers wanted for theirs? Mamdani swore, of course, that he had no intention of defunding the police, that we should ignore all those tweets he sent. Well, maybe we should have listened to the words that were coming out of his mouth. Maybe defund the police actually means defund the police, at least to the people who are now running New York City.
I know you couldn't wait to say this.
No, I'm very frustrated to have to say this.
About what I think people who were being more thoughtful about tactic were saying when they said defund the police. So I hear you. Vitale had some interesting ideas in his book that I think should be acknowledged. So he really was arguing for community safety and trying to really advocate for that. His book also argues that crimes like sex crimes, sex works, and drug crimes should not be criminalized. And so he was saying that people going to jail for those things as opposed to trying to receive some type of health evaluation, mental health evaluation. He believes that the government agencies and private companies should provide homes to homeless people as opposed to jailing them, like we also talked about when the National Guard came to DC. So these are just some ideas that were in the overall book.
Right. He wants to decriminalize sex work. I'm fine with that.
That's what I'm saying. So
drug legalization, I support
that.
I support those.
So I want to fully paint the picture of his ideas since you brought him up. So he also wants to recommend drug rehabilitation programs, and more than that, he wants to make sure that people are getting rehabilitated as opposed to jailed, right? I think that that's just a basic understanding of his book. What his book does not answer, and what I agree with, is how we deal with violent crimes, right? We cannot just not throw people in jail. Like there's no, because he does argue the furthest and most extreme point that, maybe police should be completely lessened to a point of,
crime's going to go up.
I don't know that anybody wants that, at least from the people that I talk to with a realistic mindset around this. But I think that
by being soft on crime is going to go up in New York. And who's the ones that are doing the crime? Typically blacks. People don't want to say it, but it's blacks. It's the ones that are doing most of the crime.
Your outrage about Vitale specifically is a bit overstated. I think if you understand what Mamdani is doing, he has 17 different advisory committees that he just brought on board that have a total of 400 different people. And so Vitale is one of 27 people on a committee that's going to look at community policing. And so his 10 ideas in the book that actually are good, like decriminalizing sex work, maybe is more effective than the one idea he has that says we should get rid of all police. Because there are 26 other people on that same committee that are going to be arguing their points. And that's why Mamdani is bringing a bunch of thought leaders and people that have worked in these communities.
So all of this is just going to promote an erosion of God, country, and family. That's what's going to happen here. And again, the society will start to devolve. And New York's going to end up like the 60s and the 70s. Brought to you by a communist, Napoleon the Pig.
People. So in no way is Vitale going to have more say-so than 399 others. And so I think if you remember, as you find the story because it was worth it to make your point about defunding the police. And he also found a myriad of other people that are going to be on a variety of committees that are going to help him come up with and solidify his plan as he walks into January, which I think is a solid thing to do, even when you include, just like MAGA does, the most extreme parts of the party and the most calm George Bush, Dick Cheney parts of the party. You still have to represent the Republican Party. So Mamdani is trying to hear all the voices, bring them all to the table, and talk about what the next steps could look like with a realistic conversation of a variety of minds. And I think that that's admirable.
Well, again, I would say the book is called, it's not called Legalize Sex Work, it's not called End the War on Drugs, it's called The End of Policing. So that it's a very, and then it doesn't mince words in what he talks about. And as you acknowledge, what do we do with violent crime if that's really the goal being worked toward? I would rather not see this person on any sort of community safety board. If it was simply a task force for reclassifying drug-related infractions and it was him, then okay, fine, I have no problem with that. Again, libertarian, I don't want to police that kind of behavior at all, but the idea that, I mean, his book fails to acknowledge there are numerous psychological, sociological studies. The evidence is overwhelming that having more police on the streets, look, I'm not saying there are no downsides, right? We don't want racial profiling, we don't want, but more police on the streets does deter violent crime. And in particular, solving homicides, getting people who commit homicides off the streets disincentivizes additional crime.
But you have to balance all of Mamdani's choices recently. He also kept in Jessica Tisch as the NYPD police commissioner, so he's going to go forward with that. So if we're looking at Mamdani,
I'm glad she's going to try to stick it out.
Exactly. So that therefore we have to just give Mamdani an opportunity to bring these 400 people to the table, plus keep a police commissioner in and see what happens next.
Well, next up, Trump's top man in the Russia-Ukraine peace negotiations.
All right, before we go to the threat of China, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the vitamin C and magnesium. Vitamin C and magnesium is dual purpose. It's going to help with the health of your skin, especially if you take it with the collagen. Vitamin C and magnesium will help with your immune system, so it's very important to take during the winter season. And vitamin C and magnesium helps with brain function. So you should be taking this every day. Drink it with filtered water. And you can stack it with magnesium and zinc. Magnesium and zinc boosts up that immune system and helps with brain function. Magnesium also increases the efficacy of vitamin D3. Stack these together for max benefit, boost up that immune system. Myotrol helps with gene expression. It has polyphenols, flavonoids, and lignans to help with the gene expression, to build muscle, and to maintain muscle. Super important if you're age 40 or older, male or female. Take this every day, drink it with filtered water. It'll also help the health of your mitochondria. If you're an athlete, younger or older, you'll benefit from taking Myotrol because it'll help with your strength in your sport. And vitamin B complex, super important to take if you're 40 years of age or older. Vitamin B complex will help with your electron transport chain and build ATP. The first 4 B vitamins helps with the mitochondria to build up that ATP so you have more energy. Vitamin B complex helps with the cellular metabolism, and vitamin B complex helps to protect your neurons. Super important. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. So a very powerful stack here is to take the vitamin C, magnesium, and zinc to boost up that immune system. The vitamin B complex to help with your energy levels, your cellular metabolism, and your protecting your neurons. And the Myotrol to help build muscle. Use discount 5, you get $5 off any order. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last, and you will need that free gift. Trust me. And oh, by the way, get some products and give them as gifts.
They're going to keep talking. They're talking to Russia now. Steve Witkoff is going over, maybe with Jared. I'm not sure about Jared going, but he's involved in the process. Smart guy, and they're going to be meeting with President Putin, I believe, next week in Moscow.
And there's President Trump on Air Force One last night as his top envoys worked to negotiate an end to the Russia-Ukraine war. This war nearly 4 years and going. Ukraine's Zelensky has agreed to the core terms of President Trump's revised 19-point peace plan. with only, quote, minor details to be sorted out, according to the Ukrainians. But the Kremlin now says that the new plan needs, quote, serious analysis, claiming that it was not discussed in Abu Dhabi this week with American officials. Joining me now is Arkansas Congressman Rick Crawford. He is the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Mr. Chairman, good to see you this morning. Thanks so much for being here. And what can you tell us about this Russia-Ukraine conflict?
Well, obviously there's a lot of talk in the media about it. I will say that I think Secretary Rubio has done a pretty fantastic job in being very assertive and trying to get this deal done. But the reality is, it's, as you mentioned, it's years on, some 4+ years in the making here, and this war of aggression on part of Putin needs to come to an end. There's been hundreds of thousands of people have been killed as a result of it. It's just time for it to go. But I don't really see that there's either side is winning, and it's a dangerous position to be in. We're going to continue this. We're just going to see more senseless killing. So I'm encouraged by Trump's team, and I think there are some 20 of 28 points agreed to. And so just trying to get to those last few points of contention that they can get to. Nobody's getting 100% what they want. I mean, it's never ends that way in negotiation. I think they can get there, and I think it's in everybody's interest to do so.
Yeah, I mean, once again, it's Russia who's making, new pauses on this. But I want to get your take on the intelligence around Venezuela, because President Trump signaled that he's ready to speak with Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro, even as the U.S. formally designates the dictator as the leader of a terrorist organization. Watch this.
Venezuela, sir, are you planning to talk to Nicolas Maduro?
They might talk to, we'll see, but we're discussing that with the different staffs. We might talk about Venezuela.
The U.S. Designated him the leader of this foreign terrorist organization. Why do you want to talk to him if he's the leader?
If we can save lives, if we can do things the easy way, that's fine. And if we have to do it the hard way, that's fine too. They've caused a lot of problems. And they've sent millions of people into our country. They were probably the biggest abuser with Tren de Aragua and all the others that they sent in, the drug dealers, the drug lords, the people that they sent in, the jailbirds. They opened their jails and prisons and dumped them into the United States. And we're not happy about it.
Venezuela is now ordering international airlines to resume flights that were suspended or face bans, he claims. The suspensions follow an FAA warning for airlines to exercise extreme caution if flying over Venezuelan airspace. Mr. Chairman, your reaction?
I think what the president is doing is that the media gets so spun up over this, but he met with Kim Jong-un. He's met with Putin. He's met people that are bad guys, of course. But he's doing that to try to facilitate a better outcome. And I think it's important to recognize that, yes, the U.S. has designated him as the head of a foreign terrorist organization. He's not a good guy. He is a criminal. He's wielding power in this regime illegally. That said, as the president indicated, if he can resolve this peacefully, that's the preferred method. So what does that look like? I don't know. We'll have to ask President Trump what he plans to talk about when and if he talks to Maduro, but the fact that he's willing to do it, it's a whole different approach to how we solve problems. But it's important to note that he has increased our presence in the Western Hemisphere, and I think our allies welcome it. This is as much about China and Russia as it is about Maduro. In fact, maybe more, to indicate that we're not going to leave our neighborhood unguarded.
Yeah, it's a great point. And the president has been incredible in terms of his focus and priority in ending these wars. Joe Biden did none of this. I mean, there's also Honduras. They'll go to the polls on Sunday to vote for a tightly fought presidential election. Right now, it's anybody's race. Polls show a virtual tie among the top 3 candidates, Congressman. You say this election will play a role in the future of the Western Hemisphere? Tell us about it.
No question about it. Look, I mean, what we have is the potential for another Venezuela right in close proximity to the United States. And where is Honduras located? Well, it's adjacent to Guatemala, which is an excellent ally of ours, which is very important for us from a security perspective. It's right up against Nicaragua, which would enhance a communist presence in the region, and it's adjacent to El Salvador. El Salvador is a great ally of ours as well. We want to make sure that our region is free of that kind of menacing presence. And the reality is they're trending toward communism, and the Chinese are waiting in the wings, facilitating this as much as they can. We need to make sure that our allies know that we're with them, give them some options. And I travel the Western Hemisphere extensively, and I talk to heads of state, and they'll all tell you, well, you're our preferred partner. And then in the same breath, they'll talk about how they just signed a trade deal with China. The reason they're doing that is because we haven't given them options. And so now the president is saying, look, we're going to come out here and we're going to demonstrate to our allies that we're here and we're serious about securing the neighborhood. And we want to make sure that we're partnering with folks so that we can be a pushback against China. This election in Honduras is really Exhibit A. We need to make sure that it's a free and fair election and that the Chinese are not able to install potentially, an ally like they already have with Castro. And Moncado is potentially another Maduro in the making.
Yeah, great points all around. And President Trump has been dealing with China so effectively. I think this is all about China. The way that the president has been gaining allies across the world to try to stop China's massive aggression has been really smart. Congressman, thank you. Great to see you. Congressman Rick Crawford, I see a Christmas tree in the background. Merry Christmas and happy Thanksgiving, sir. Good to see you this morning.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Are you wearing 7 layers and still freezing your man nipples? You need the new 340 GSM military-grade bearskin hoodie to get comfortable in the wild. It's the ultimate 10-pocket.
All right,
if we can do things the easy way, that's fine.
We're going to pivot over to BBC News, talking about Taiwan and the relationship between China and Japan. Before we do that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Boomer Boost. Boomer Boost has 68 nutrients, has a very comprehensive compound profile shown on the screen. You can read the label on my website. This is magical stuff. You should be taking this every day, and it's part of my anti-aging protocol. It's the 4th pillar. The foundation is the multivitamin and probiotic. The first pillar is the Max 35 or cleanse to boost up the immune system. The second pillar, C60, is the very strong antioxidant. Third pillar, turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans to boost up the immune system, bring down inflammation. And the fourth pillar, Boomer Boost, rev up the metabolism and increase your energy levels. But it does even more than just that. It will help with your cardiovascular health. It will help with your brain function, help with musculature. It's very important to take every day, and it'll help to slow down the aging process. This is a month supply. You mix it with soft foods, filtered water, a smoothie, or with just milk. I normally mix it with hummus, but you can take it many different ways. But make sure you take it every day, 1 scoop a day. This stuff is very important to slow down the aging process. And it works even better when you stack it with the other supplements that I have, especially that protocol that I just mentioned. So please go to my store and get the Boomer Boost. Now, in terms of the foundation, the multivitamin that I have is easy to digest, and this has the cofactors for proper enzymatic activity so your cells perform properly. Take it every day, drink it with filtered water. And I have a veggie cap version of the probiotic and a powdered version. This is the powdered version. Take the probiotic every day. It's going to help with your gut biome. It's going to improve your immune system at the gut level, improve the communication between your gut and your liver, so your metabolism is better. You'll be able to absorb your nutrients easier, and you'll sleep better. Get rid of that brain fog. You'll be able to consolidate memory better, and it'll help to detoxify your central nervous system because you're sleeping better. A good gut biome will actually help with your brain function. And also, over time, a good gut biome is going to help with your skin health. Please go to my store, get the probiotic either in the veggie cap form or in the powdered form. Take it every day. It's very important. Good health starts at the gut. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. You spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last.
Are Chinese. So there has been some reaction on Twitter, for example, putting China's advisory saying, warning Chinese tourists not to go to Japan, and then, some Japanese saying, well, okay, if you don't want to come, don't come.
It started with what some call an off-the-cuff remark. Others say it was deliberate. Japan's new Prime Minister, Sanae Takaichi, told Parliament that if China were to use force against Taiwan, it could create a survival-threatening situation for Japan. That phrase isn't just rhetoric. Under Japanese law, it's the threshold for military action. Beijing's response? Furious.
China has summoned the Japanese ambassador over comments made by his Prime Minister on Taiwan.
Chinese officials accused Tokyo of crossing a red line and warned of serious consequences. One senior diplomat posted a chilling, violent message online. It was later deleted, but the tone was clear. China has since written to the United Nations, summoned Japan's ambassador, suspended imports of Japanese seafood, issued travel warnings, and cancelled cultural exchanges. Japan, in turn, has advised its citizens in China to stay vigilant. Neither side seems ready to back down. This hostility taps into a deep and bitter history between the two countries, from wartime memories to territorial disputes. But why did a single statement ignite tensions now? And could this latest spat spiral into something far uglier?
Skechers has the perfect holiday gift for everyone. Hands-free cozy fit Skechers slip-ins. It's a hands-free holiday with Skechers slip-ins.
With Canva AI, you'll never design alone again. Just tag in Canva for instant design feedback and suggestions, all from within the editor, so you won't break your workflow. Enjoy creative confidence.
I'm Marie Goy in Singapore, and this is the very first episode of Asia Pacific, our brand new podcast from the BBC World Service. Twice a week, we bring you Asia Pacific stories, unpacked by those who know them best. And today, I have the BBC's China correspondent, Laura Baker, in Beijing, and also the BBC's Japan correspondent, Shaima Halil, in Tokyo. Thank you both. It's so good to have you both on Asia Pacific. Let's start with how we got here. Exactly what did Ms. Takaichi say, Shaima? Because it wasn't like she was making a big speech about Taiwan, was she? She was basically answering a question in Parliament.
Exactly. She wasn't making a big speech, but an opposition lawmaker had mentioned Taiwan. He had a specific question to Ms. Takaichi asking, in regards to Taiwan, what would constitute survival-threatening situation? Now, highlight that bit, survival-threatening situation, because that's key language. And then the Prime Minister, Sanae Takaichi, responded with her own very specific language. If there are battleships and the use of force, he said, when it comes to Taiwan, no matter how you think about it, it could constitute a survival-threatening situation. That is a legal term in Japanese security law, which essentially means that the armed forces, any armed attack on Japan's allies, on Japan, poses an existential threat to Japan, at which point Japan's SDF, self-defense forces, can get involved.
Yeah, I want to ask Laura about Beijing's reaction, but for viewers and listeners wondering why, hypothetically, Taiwan's invasion has anything to do with Japan's survival is, I guess the thinking is, if Taiwan, again, was hypothetically invaded, it could be Okinawa next, because China has spoken about Okinawa/Ryukyu in the past. But Laura, in terms of Beijing's reaction, I mean, we've seen violent protests before. I remember, back in 2012, because my uncle was living in China and there were violent anti-Japan protests. Demonstrators were burning Toyota cars and so on. But this language that this Consulate General used, that's quite unprecedented, isn't it?
It is unprecedented in those terms, and I think this is now the most serious diplomatic dispute between Japan and China since that kind of 2010-2012 dispute. It is worth, pointing out that those protests on the street came, they were organised protests. In terms of rising anti-Japanese sentiment, this is a year in which China has been commemorating the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. What it sees as a victory over Imperial Japan. And all year, there has been this rise in kind of anti-Japanese sentiment. We've seen it on state media. We've seen films commemorating the Nanjing massacre, where 200,000 unarmed civilians were, in the view of Chinese, murdered by Imperial Japanese armies. So I think when it comes to the kind of rhetoric already within China, you've seen a rise of that sentiment. And then, of course, come these comments. Now, we've seen a bit of a return of what outside of China they call the wolf warrior, this kind of aggressive rhetoric that is used by both their politicians and their state media against countries that have allegedly wronged China. And for the last 5 years, the wolf warrior has gone a wee bit silent until now. Well and truly back, it would seem. You know, in terms of the kind of aggressive rhetoric, there's been saber rattling from the military. They've said, we've honed our skills through rigorous training. How can we allow you to be so cocky, says the army spokesperson. Former state media commentators have also called Ms. Takaichi a witch. So it has become quite a heated rhetoric over the last week. There was a visit by a Japanese envoy to try to sort things out, to try to ease tensions, but that too didn't seem to go very well. First of all, when it came to the Chinese side, they didn't see the Japanese envoy as being high enough to be sent to sort out such what they see as a huge problem. And second of all, he wore one of the Chinese delegates, a senior diplomat, he wore what is known as a kind of suit. It's a collarless suit with 5 buttons. And it was worn by students in 1919 Chinese students who tried to overcome Japanese imperialism. So it was seen as a sign of defiance on the Chinese side.
I remember watching that meeting, and the Japanese media's reaction was how, the Chinese diplomat had his hands both in his pockets, whereas the Japanese official was seen to be bowing. Maybe he was bowing towards the translator, you never know, but that picture really went viral, and some of the memes were quite, hilarious, to be honest. But at the same time, I want to ask how locals feel about this, because reading the Japanese public's reaction, when there were those protests in 2012, it was because of a territorial dispute. So I think people can kind of understand that. Whereas this comment by Ms. Takaichi, I can see a lot of people going, what did she say? That's so wrong, because the language is so specific, and even, not many people in Japan, were aware that what she said was such a big deal, China.
I think from the Japanese side, if you look at the reaction, which I'm sure you've been following, the language that the experts use, the reaction from people on the streets is not as angry as what Laura has been saying on the Chinese side. I think from where I'm sitting, it's more about watching what's going on, waiting for the ramifications, but also asking the question, what was it that was so outrageous? Because again, remember, yes, Tokyo refused to retract, but she did.
Finance the old way. Finance the ramp way.
Guitar Center is your one-stop shop for unique gifts. Get them playing with $120 off exclusive Ibanez acoustic electrics.
Tokyo refused to retract, but she did promise to be more careful. In a way, she was saying, look, you know this. I shouldn't have said it the way I said it, but this is our stance, right?
Do you think the fact that she's not withdrawing that comment, is it kind of almost benefiting her? Because politically, the in terms of the travel advisory that Beijing gave, one could argue that there were a lot of concerns about over-tourism in Japan, and some people kind of cheering the fact that maybe there are fewer tourists.
There are a couple of things here. I think definitely her standing her ground does serve her well with her domestic audience, with her more conservative constituents, that's for sure. But I also think one of the things that I picked up when I was looking at Twitter reaction is that comment on tourism. Yes, of course, tourism operators are concerned. We've spoken, for example, to a manager of a tea house, a tea ceremony, with many people, with hundreds and hundreds of tourists that are coming. And she said that they've already had cancellations from Chinese tourists. But as you say, Japan has been concerned with over-tourism for the past couple of years. In 2024, it's had record numbers of tourists. And remember, almost a quarter of Japan's tourists are Chinese. So there has been some reaction on Twitter, for example, putting China's advisory saying, warning Chinese tourists not to go to Japan. And then, some Japanese saying, well, okay, if you don't want to come, don't come, that it's fine.
Laura, I want to ask you about that anti-Japan sentiment that you were talking about earlier, because I think, you talked about those anti-Japan education dramas, movies that even young children today continue to watch. I mean, how do locals feel about this latest development? You know, do they really think that this one comment from Mr. Takaichi is such a huge deal that, you know, that could actually, the tensions could actually get so much worse again?
When it comes to people on the ground, I mean, most people here are watching the news, they're seeing state media, they will just repeat state media lines. But the reason Beijing has acted in this way is a carefully calibrated message. This message is not just for Tokyo. This message is for all, perhaps US and its allies, when it comes to this language on Taiwan. This is a message that this issue is a red line that China does not want you to cross. And if you do cross it, there will be consequences. I think there's another bigger point at play here when we talk about Ms. Takaichi. There is a concern, I would imagine, here in Beijing about defence spending. Now, the US is encouraging its allies to spend more on defence. And Beijing may be worried about the militarization of Asia, of this region, and in particular, Japan, given the history that it has with Japan. And therefore, you know, if you're looking at a Taiwan issue, and if you're looking at the new, a month-old Prime Minister of Japan saying that any kind of a theoretical attack on Taiwan, a territory that China believes is its own, any theoretical attack on Taiwan would constitute a military response. They see this as a particular threat. They've even raised it with the United Nations.
Indeed, it's kind of a new Japan under Sanai Takaichi, isn't it? I want to ask you both about where could this go next? Because, you know, Laura, you were talking about anti-Japan sentiments, and yes, you know, there are decades of bitter shared history, especially from the Second World War. But at the same time, you know, one could argue that there's almost like an anti-Japan sentiment that's always there that Beijing could use when, you know, they have domestic issues. You know, it's something that, you know, if they wanted to get rid of anti-Japan sentiment, you know, if they want to improve relations, if they wanted something more out of Tokyo, you know, could they have done something else? So where do you think this could go next? Because we keep seeing these tensions flaring up over and over.
I think the problem now is that perhaps China has said already that unless Ms. Takaichi retracts her comments, there will be further countermeasures. We've yet to see what they may entail. You've already got an urging of tourists not to go now, even if you're a young person who's not going on these tour groups, and it has to be mentioned, it's just tour groups really that are being cancelled. Even if you're a young person who's booked a visit to Japan, I mean, we spoke to some young people last week, and one of the things they were telling us is one of the reasons why they might think again about going is actually they'd be worried about their parents' reaction, because it's that generation, that older generation, that is worried about Japan and about you know, what people might think if they go to Japan. So, you know, if you go, you're certainly maybe not. I spoke to a few people that said even if we go, we're not going to put it on our social media. So where does it go from here? I don't think things are going to get better anytime soon.
And I think that this has been a gift to Beijing, almost, Sanai Takaichi's comments, because not only have they used it to warn Japan, to say that this is a red line that Japan shouldn't cross, especially with a prime minister that they're worried about, kind of a China hawk, someone who's friendly to Taiwan, and also a frequent visitor to the Yasukuni shrine where war criminals are buried. That really angers China. But also, I think it's Tokyo. This is the U.S.'s key ally in the region after, you know, a very friendly and rather successful Donald Trump visit to Japan. So I think in a way that has worked well in terms of Beijing framing this as something that a line that shouldn't be crossed. And so in a way, you're kind of in this situation where both sides are pushing, but both sides also know that there are key ties as well. The fact that these are key trading partners. China is Japan's largest trading partner, and we're talking about trillions of yen, billions of dollars coming back and forth. You're talking about auto powerhouses like Nissan, Honda, and Toyota, all having big facilities in China. You're talking about trade when it comes to semiconductors and rare earths. All of these are really
crucial relationships that both sides will want to maintain.
Yeah, that reminds me, in 2012, when there were those violent protests, and, I actually interviewed my uncle about it, and, he said, yeah, it was a bit scary, but it was actually business as usual behind...
When it comes to business, yeah. Business is business as usual, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, it's interesting. You said Sanae Takaichi's comments may have been a gift to Beijing, but also the fact that, the US and others have kind of expressed support for Japan in light of all these, reaction from Beijing. And I was looking at the survey where almost half, I think it was like 45% of the Japanese public now support the use of self-defense force if there was an invasion of Taiwan, which I thought was quite astonishing because, the LDP, the ruling party, has been trying to, boost defense spending, possibly even change that pacifist constitution, and the public were always reluctant.
Yeah, it was always, the public was always resistant. The public was always wary of hiking up defense spending because it meant that it was veering away from its pacifist constitution. But I think the Japanese public is very aware of the fact that this is a very different neighborhood right now. This is a much more hostile Asia Pacific. It is a much more unstable Asia Pacific. And Japan needs to be able to defend itself. Japan needs to be able to deploy its self-defense forces in an effective way. And so with Sanae Takaichi making these comments, again standing her ground, I think that has pulled well with a lot of people here. And as you say, because of what China did, because of China's reaction, that has instantly then brought more support from the United States to Japan.
I think when it comes to what would constitute making it worse, I think when I spoke to some analysts, the thing that would make it a lot worse would be if China once again banned exports of rare earths to Japan. Now, the reason why many people think that might not happen is because obviously it might influence the deal that they already have on the table with the United States. But in terms of being a gift to Beijing, I think also there are issues for Beijing in this. It had put away its wolf warrior teeth for the last 5 years. President Xi has been trying to appeal to other countries as China looks like the new emerging global leader. And then I think it's this comment from the US ambassador to Tokyo. He said, the mask has slipped. It's time for Beijing to behave like the good neighbor it talks repeatedly about being, but fails repeatedly to become. And I think when it comes to that comment, that might touch a little bit of a nerve for other countries who are watching this.
Laura, just a quick question on that. Do you actually think, because I know that you were there covering APEC in South Korea, and again there were these optics of Xi Jinping being, assuming this leadership position in the region, which was quite something to watch. Do you think that this week or these past couple of weeks, China stands towards Japan? Do you think that it might scare people off?
I'm not sure it'll scare people off.
Ink so bright it pops off the page. Feel joy of ink joy. Gel pens by Papermate.
What is a registered agent?
It's simple. A registered agent is a person or company you assign to accept state and legal.
I'm not sure it'll scare people off. It'll certainly, I think it's a reminder of who you're dealing with. That China has its moments and its red lines, and Taiwan for them is a red line, and it's a reminder also to the world of China's ambitions. China has, certainly President Xi has vowed to reunite China with Taiwan, the self-governing island, and by force if necessary. And it's a reminder of that. Whether or not there are more countermeasures, whether or not China is going to sit there and go, right, okay, you have to retract these comments, or we are going to take more countermeasures, or whether or not it simmers away and then just levels off, we'll have to see. But it may also depend on what Ms. Takaichi does. If she visits the shrine, then I think that would provoke a huge response here in China. And I think that will be the moment where it would be very difficult for these two countries to walk back from this diplomatic spat. I think right now, it's a row, it's a spat. I think if she visits the shrine, it becomes something huge.
And it becomes something concrete as well, doesn't it? Because then it says, because up until now, she could say, look, I've answered a question. This was a question in Parliament. I'm the Prime Minister. I'm looking at Japanese law, Japanese defense law, and I answered, you know, in a fully transparent way. Maybe I shouldn't have said what I said the way I said it. I'm not going to retract it, but I'll be careful next time. But if she visits the Yasukuni Shrine, something that China has been dead against and something that China has raised with Japan when the late former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe did visit all those years back when he was still in power, her mentor, of course. If she does that, I think that is a more conscious move, knowing that this would anger Beijing. I would be very surprised if she does that.
She's been quite careful, hasn't she? She hasn't really committed one way or the other because she doesn't want to upset her supporters by ruling it out either. A very tricky situation that we'll continue to watch what happens next. Thank you so much, Laura Vicker in Beijing and Shaima Halil in Tokyo. You've been watching Asia Pacific from the BBC.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the collagen. Collagen is dual purpose. It's going to help with your skin, your hair, and your nails, help with your musculature, your bone density, and your joint health, your cartilage. Super important. You stack this with vitamin C and drink 32 to 64 ounces of water throughout the day, and it'll improve your dermal layer for your skin. Please go to my store. Take this collagen. It's very high quality collagen. The typical amino acid profile is shown on the screen here. It's a month's supply. Take it every day. You can take it with soft foods, filtered water, a smoothie, or even with milk. But take it every day. Super important. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nano silver drops. If you have a throat irritation, take them right away. Have some at work, have some at home. You never know when you need them. Get a few bags for your household. You can get it in cherry flavor, honey and lemon, and also in blueberry. Very high quality. Be prepared for the winter season. If you place an order, make sure you use discount 5. You get $5 off any order. And if you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the drops, get the collagen, be prepared for the winter season. And by the way, the holidays are coming up. You need to buy gifts. Go to my store, purchase the products, and use them as gifts. Get people to get healthy in your family. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All right, let's listen in to the shoppers. Shoppers look ahead to Black Friday. It's Cyber Monday.
About how on-chain capital movements for crypto are about to change the whole game for everyone.
Luxury is one of those categories where, based on our recent survey, we are planning on seeing some recovery during the Black Friday season. It was one of the categories that when we surveyed across, we saw an increase in spend.
Black Friday used to be 1 hour in front of Walmart with 3,000 people.
Exactly.
And Tiffany says it's a season now, Paul.
Yeah, and here's something that surprised me, Tom. In-store shopping is making a big comeback as fewer only shop online. Tiffany, talk to us about that. If I'd never gone to a store again, I'll be happy.
Well, what we're actually seeing is that most shoppers are planning on shopping both in-store and online this holiday season. And the reason that they want to go back in store is they want to touch and feel the products, right? They want to be a part of experiential retail. They want personalized help as they shop. And it's really in line with what we've been seeing all year long, with mall traffic continuing to come back and store purchases coming back as well, as the hybrid shopping channel, if you will, becomes the norm. And I want to emphasize that point on hybrid because we are really seeing consumers grow across channels during their shopping journeys, including in how they're using AI.
All right, so talk to us about AI. Can AI kind of make my shopping list for me and kind of go and buy this stuff for me?
No.
AI can definitely do both now. And that being said, I would say most consumers are still using AI more in their initial shopping research and inspiration. And we actually found that about 50% of consumers plan on using AI in this holiday season.
I'm addicted to it. I had to do a search yesterday. You ready? Dark chocolate.
Okay.
I know.
Wait. You can search, right? Just like Google, but you can't purchase based on your AI. Your AI can't purchase for you. So we're not even close to having a purchasing assistant.
Nothing about dark chocolate. I grew up with Bosco.
Yes.
Now,
Okay.
maybe
dark chocolate.
Maybe what people are doing is they're going to a website and they have an AI assistant embedded in that website, and you ask that assistant, well, I'm looking for blah, 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 and it will help you with its purchase, just like a human being might when you go to a brick and mortar store and you're saying, I'd like to, buy something. All right. But that's not like a typical AI assistant that's independent of a particular website going in and actually making your purchases. We can't do that yet. It's not possible yet.
Perplexity, Tiffany. Dark chocolate. Boom. There's like 3 types to buy, just like that. Okay, but Tiffany, the basic BCG question, and Paul brought this up yesterday. What inning are we in for the growth of online, for the growth of Amazon and Walmart? If it's a baseball game, does Dallas have a baseball game?
Yeah, Texas Rangers.
Oh, they do.
Sure.
Yeah. But Tiffany, what inning are we in with our online experience?
I think it depends a little bit on what angle you're looking at it from, but if you think about where we are, I would say we're still in the middle of the game because, you mentioned perplexity, right? Large language models like ChatGPT, they are really changing what the potential shopping journey is. And that, retailers have to think about what their strategy is within that. It's not an all or nothing game. And so how they think about, showing up in AI
searches, like internet searches, it's just different, all right? Instead of using Google or Yahoo, you're using ChatGPT. Big deal, all right? Now, you can have OpenAI embedded in a website. You've trained your AI to help the customers that have logged on to your website as an assistant. So it's like customer service. Big deal. So what? Right? We don't have an assistant on our desktop or on our phones that says, go and schedule for a flight to Switzerland next Tuesday. And by the way, book for hotel and a limo pickup. And on Friday, make sure that you buy tickets to the orchestra. They can't do that. So really, AI is just, everything's faster just imagine your world before AI. It wasn't that long ago. How would you do it? Well, you'd go to the brick and mortar store and purchase, or you would go to Amazon and purchase. They had, customer help. Either you call them or you type it in. It's not really any different. It's not that much different. So here in this realm that she's talking about in purchasing, I don't see how generative AI, I think they're using the term wrong, but prompt AI for purchasing, what's the difference? Maybe a little faster, maybe a little bit more accurate, maybe, but it's not that big of a deal. Now, the other things that I said earlier in this broadcast, that's a big deal. Eliminating your human staff for customer service, and you have a robot, AI robot assistant on a website, big deal. So what?
It's more important than ever now.
How how are the retailers dealing with tariffs here and passing along with?
Wait. We have to rewind. Now I understand what the hell she's doing. All right. I didn't realize this. So Tiffany is from Boston Consulting Group, managing director, consultant. Consultants are stupid. All right. If they were smart, they would have their own business. All right. So, well, let me get this straight here. She's a consultant, and she has to consult large businesses. So if she generates fluff in the media about how important AI, generative AI is for retail, then she gets more consulting fees. She gets more clients to buy into this BS. But let's look at the end user. Just like how Steve Jobs said, you got to design a product and you got to understand how the end user is using it and how it makes their life better. Does generative AI for purchasing make your life any better than it was pre-open AI? No. Let's be honest, no. Beware of the consultant.
More important than ever now.
How are the retailers dealing with tariffs?
This is the
here
point I'm making.
Passing along.
You can tell, you can tell a lot about the psychology of someone. All right, Tiffany. All right, Tiffany, Boston consultant on Bloomberg. Okay, now talking about generative AI, but really what they're talking about is prompt AI. Okay, now let's see here. Now watch her face.
Sure, yeah.
Watch her face.
But Tiffany, what inning are we in with our online experience?
I think it depends a little bit on what angle you're looking at it from, but if you think about where we are, I would say we're still in the middle of the game because, you mentioned perplexity, right? Large language models like ChatGPT, they are really changing what the potential.
We're in the middle of the game. Okay, that's like, what, fourth inning? Wait a minute here. Did your experience as a user to purchase change because of generative AI? No. Don't you think if you're in the middle of the game, you would notice it? What it has done is reduced staff for these companies, because now you can just lay off your customer service and have R2D2 do it. Now, again, she's a consultant. Now let's watch her face. Watch her face, because she's got this consultant, I'm putting one over you type. I'll tell you when I see it.
Shopping journey is, and that retailers have to think about what their strategy is within that. It's not an all or nothing game. And so how they think about, showing up in AI search becomes more important than ever now.
How are the retailers dealing with tariffs here and passing along whatever cost increases they might be bearing? Are they taking it in their margin? Are they trying to pass it along to customers? How's that playing out here? Because we don't hear as much about tariffs as we did, maybe at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I think everyone's settled into sort of this new norm when it comes to tariffs, if you will. And it's a mixture of both, definitely, right? They've taken some in their margins, they have passed them along through. And for this holiday season, they know that consumers, right, still have expectations when it comes to discounting promotions.
Right.
And so they're making sure that they can meet those expectations.
Tiffany, quickly, one final question. Okay, so all of us are buying off this Affirm kind of thing where it's set out in payments. I don't know what you call it, like Affirm and, all the others folks. If I go into a given store, they want all my money now or a charge card. But if I buy online, I can spread out the payments. Where do you see that dynamic in 2 years, in 5 years?
Sure, we've seen actually a stabilization in the buy now, pay later trend. So while there's still a consumer and still categories that's going to play a meaningful role, I think we're seeing it balanced with those to go in store that I was talking about and the benefits that you get when you go in store.
Is Highland Park, I've never been.
Tiffany, in Dallas.
Sorry, I'm picking up on something that with her face. You know, it's like, well, wait a minute here. If the consumer, if they're talking about generative AI, all right, or prompt AI, it's not even generative, but let's just say prompt AI, all right? If the consumer is benefiting from it, well, how's it any different than pre-generative AI purchasing online? I don't see the difference. I'm sure you don't either. But that there's a smug look that she has, and then you have a customer base now that is starting to go, well, wait a minute here. I gotta, they gotta pay. They have to purchase on credit or pay by payments, whatever. So we're really got to a point where the consumer can't absorb the cost. The consumer can't afford it. This consumer shouldn't buy it. But yet you have Boston Consulting making money, trying to drive people to buy stuff that they don't need. So there's a smugness about it. Now with generative AI, searching, web search, eventually what's going to happen is those prompts either run by Gemini or run by Grok or run by GPT, OpenAI, they'll eventually get to a point where whatever you're searching, they're going to embed advertisements. They're probably, whenever you search, they're probably going to have something to dealing with ranking to get you your particular website ranked. If you search for websites for purchasing, in Tom Keen's case, chocolate, all right? Just like they rank websites on Google. That's probably going to be coming. I can see that coming. I think searching the web is going to just turn into an AI problem. But there's a smugness that I'm picking up here. You got to remember, who is she? She's a manager at Boston Consulting, right? So she has to drum up that there's this really important thing for the end user, and that's generative AI. Well, we're in the middle of the game here, okay? All right, depending on what game you're talking about. Baseball, okay, we're in the fourth inning, the bottom of the fourth. If we're talking about football, all right, we're at halftime. You would think you would know the score for generative AI or prompt AI. Have you noticed the difference in how you purchase? Does it really make your life better? No.
Highland Park is like, that's sort of like where they invented one-stop luxury, right?
We do have a really lovely shopping center in Highland Park that has a lot of great luxury stores.
Give us one experience. Come on. Not using the BCG Amex. I mean, what's your favorite store?
Well, I must admit, my favorite store in Highland Park is actually a bakery. It's called Burke Bakery, and I love the baked goods there. They make an excellent scone.
Great, you get to come back on the show. Michael Barr says, "Bring her back." Tiffany, thank you so much with BCG Dallas here.
All right.
Who's coming in the driveway?
All right. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the lignans. Lignans will help with your immune system and your endocrine system, bring down inflammation, and soak up free radicals. This is super important to take during the winter season to boost up that immune system, and it will help to slow down the aging process. Take it every day. You get max benefits if you stack it with turmeric and ashwagandha. Turmeric will bring down inflammation and help with your immune system and your cardiovascular system. And ashwagandha root will help to control your cortisol levels and your blood glucose levels. Super important to help with your cardiovascular health and your immune system. So if you stack these together, it's a very powerful stack and it's part of my anti-aging protocol. that will help to boost up that immune system and help with cardiovascular health. By bringing down inflammation at the cardiovascular level, you're reducing plaque formation. This is super important, not just to help with your heart, but also to help with your brain. Why? Because if you have better blood flow to your brain, your neurons are healthier. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the turmeric, the ashwagandha root, and the lignans, stack them together to get the max benefit, and you'll slow down the aging process. And you'll get further benefits if you stack this with C60, the Boomer Boost, Max 35 or Cleanse, the multivitamin, and the probiotic. And that's the core protocol to slowing down the aging process. Now, not everybody can afford that. But if you stack this one right here, you get a good stack that's going to help with your cardiovascular health, boost up that immune system, and slow down the aging process. And again, by doing that core protocol, you're really going to revving up your body's health and slow down the aging process, and you'll have more longevity. And the more often you do this, and you couple it with proper diet and exercise and supplementation and proper sleep, mindfulness, getting your body into parasympathetic mode, learning new things. When you do all these things in a holistic fashion, you are going to have more longevity, especially in your geriatric years. And you're going to be spending less money on medical care. So invest in your body, use discount 5, you get $5 off any order, and you get a free gift until supplies last. Thank you for listening. That's the end of my broadcast. Please go to my store, help support the work that I do, and get healthy. Follow my advice, get healthy, it works. All right? Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.